With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
It is the greatest spectacle in all of Lionheart competition. More than 30 of the best drivers in all of open wheel competition on iRacing look to add their names to the record books at the Brickyard. Just one can come away with the checker flag from 4790 West 16th Street in Speedway, Indiana. Who will that person be for 2021? We're about to find out. This is the Hyperx Indianapolis 500. Hello everyone and welcome to racespottv and ESTV for coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by Hyperx, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, Hyperx knows we're all gamers. For more information on Hyperx products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside me is Lorenzo Bonder for today's coverage, with Hugo Wees in the producer's seat. TV cameras are provided by Istvan Balu and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras provided by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to timing71.org to follow along with your favorite team and drivers in real and virtual worlds of motorsport. Let's dive into our Buttkicker pre-race show as we get ready for the first Triple Crown race of the season. Lorenzo, a lot of hype after an exciting qualifying session just a few days ago.
Yeah, we're finally here. 200 laps, 800 left-hand corners, 7 minimal pit stops. It all comes down to this. We've done the qualifying. The talking is over. Let's get to the action because 200 laps will be very, very frantic. So you guys now see the schedule over here, the first of the Triple Crown events.
Yes, indeed, and it has been an intriguing past few months to get here, with some great battles, some great strategy, and an interesting Indy GP to say the very least, with multiple drivers looking to forget how things started off for the month of June here at the Brickyard. But this track brings so much prestige and means so much to this series and its drivers. This race can make or break people's seasons and their careers.
Absolutely, because the first thing they have to be thinking is where are you going to be placing this race and where do you go for it with the points, because it isn't just points over here. You're talking about double points, and this is the important thing. These points matter. They can shape the entire scope of the championship here, Justin. And again, positioning itself is important. Can't wait to see it.
Let's take a look at those driver standings presented by Buttkicker, with Adam Blocker leading the way in the points entering today's action with 455 points on the season. Connor Harrington has 343 points after a rough performance at the Brickyard during the Indy GP. while Joshua Chin, Henry Bennett, Ryan Oates rounds out the top 5. Very tight, to say the very least, from second on back entering today's action. And of course, double the points on the line.
Yeah, if we're talking about the championship scopes in any of the other races, we might have say, all right, that gap that Blocker and Harrington have is pretty much big for you to try to recover. But this is a double point event, so if Harrington gets a good spot over here, if he gets the win, and Blocker has a disastrous race, he can actually close down that gap, maybe contend for lead, and then you actually can get some places being shuffled up just in the middle of the pack, just because you're fighting again for those double points.
And it can be very critical for the team standings as well for the respective organizations, presented by HyperX. As private label Team Hype enters today with the team standings, Adrenaline Motorsports had a very strong qualifying performance this past Wednesday. They have 829 points for the red organization. Alcatech Simulations, NHR Esports in third, Graphics LPM, Sector 5 rounding up the top 5 in the team standings. So in our words, private label Team Hype, Adrenaline Motorsports Red looking strong heading into today's round as we head towards your rookie standings once more for today's action. Those standings presented by buttkicker. Henry Bennett leads the way in the rookie standings. He's one of the top qualifiers from Wednesday. He has 330 points on the season with Jason Brophy, Lionel Callisto, Matt Taylor, Aaron Morgan, all looking strong so far, Lorenzo, this season.
Everybody looking really strong over here in this season, and again, this racing is going to be really interesting because the position that Brophy, Bennett are right now, I think even Matt Taylor had a really good qualifying, if I recall that correctly, will actually play an effect of this race. So can't wait to see how it is going to go. But then again, it's 200 laps, everything can place out, but judging by the standings so far, everything can actually be shuffled just in the blink of an eye.
Let's take the opportunity to look at your series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Trend-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And one thing to emphasize when it comes to this HyperX Indianapolis 500, custom fixed setups with in-car tools available for our drivers. In past editions, those weren't available with fixed setups, so it's going to be very critical for drivers to know those adjustments for today.
Yeah, especially as they go corner by corner by corner, and they're gonna have to tackle it how the race develops. We haven't talked about the weather in this race so far, and it is gonna shift a little bit here, Justin. So those in-car adjustments, shifting up and down the weight jackers, and also the anti-roll bars will be very important just to keep that car on track and make sure you actually finish this car.
Keep in mind, this is also the 7th running of the greatest spectacle in racing here for the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Only one driver, Jonathan Goat, has won twice in Speedway, Indiana, and those were in back-to-back seasons. 3 drivers have a chance of kissing the bricks and join that 2-time club today, depending on those performances. Those drivers, Andrew Kinsella, Sage Karam, Adam Blocker, have a chance to make history. And oh, by the way, closest margin of victory, season 1, when there were 2 different splits, and it was by 1/1000th of a second, Lorenzo.
Yeah, basically the closest race we ever had in this championship, but not in this championship and in this running. But I can't wait to see it. You know, having the positions, if we are to judge Blocker, Kinsella, and Karam, the biggest advantage has to go to Kinsella and Blocker so far, just by positioning themselves alone. They are within the top 5. Karam is a little bit shuffled back in the top 10, but still can make the moves, and plus he has the real life experience. He knows how to run this, and well, he got a top 10 over here, so I think that real life experience is going to help him out a little bit.
It's going to be interesting, and don't forget Karam, one of the drivers who charged their way from the back of the field all the way to the front during this year's Real World Indianapolis 500. Let's take a look at our track map for today and talk a little bit more about this facility. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 2.5 miles, open since the 1900s. And it's one of the largest facilities in all of the globe. And while it looks like a rectangle, as you Justin O'Leary described during the Retro Series broadcast, it's a very challenging track, Lorenzo.
It's probably one of the toughest challenges for you to tackle in terms of ovals. It seems really simple, right? Just looking at the oval and the shallow bankings as they go into turn number 1, 2, 3, and 4. But the way they tackle these cars, they can shift every single lap because of the draft, how the tires are actually responding to you lap by lap, and that affects you the whole behavior of the car. So even though looks simple when you look at it first glance, when you tackle it is a whole different story.
These drivers just a few moments away from tackling this track for today. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is one of the biggest moments of all this season. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indiana, all set to tackle the HyperX Indianapolis 500. And the question is, who will kiss those bricks down the front straightaway when we're all done? Let's find out, because it's time to head towards your butt kicker starting grid. Drivers now making their way to their cars. They have less than a minute to roll into their cockpits for today's action from Indianapolis, where Adam Blocker set the fastest time in qualifying in the HyperX race for the pole on Wednesday. Henry Bennett will start in second with Jason Brophy in third, Andrew Kinsella in fourth. Brian Carey and Connor Harrington will start in fifth and sixth. Joe Branch starts in seventh with Stephen Larkamp in eighth position, with Sage Karam in the ninth position. Chris Stouffer starts in 10th with Chris Fowler and Joshua Chin rounds out your top 12. Tower Graph starts 13th with Jay Brent, Mike Rasmus, and Lionel Callisto the top 16, with Ryan Otis deep in the field in 17th. Matt Houston starts in 18th position with James Grahula 19th, Ron Hacker, Mike Rickney, Ken Hacker, top 22. Aaron Morgan had a rough qualifying run, starts 23rd today, with Adam Frazier 24th, David Martinez 25th, with Scott Holmes the last of the drivers who took times. The rest of the field either did not qualify or had incidents during the qualifying session. Ricky Harden, Matt Taylor, Brian Beard, Samuel Ryman, the top 30, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, along with Richie Hearn, Tony Showen, Justin Weaver, Brian Greenlee, your 35 drivers who have made it to the grid in time to start today's action. And as the cars now roll, let's take a look at your featured onboard cameras for the HyperX Indianapolis 500. As the drivers get ready to go, let's first take a look at Sage Karam, who will be carrying your HyperX on board today. It appears he did not make it to your grid in time. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Ryan Otis will drive with the Sim Experience on board. Sim Experience, makers of the AccuForce Pro V2 direct drive steering system. For more information, visit simexperience.com.
For butt kicker, we have Chris Fowler, the number 20. What you see is what you hear and is what you feel. For more information, visit buttkicker.com. And for Aspo Designs, we have Adam Blocker, the number 2 car. Get yourself a racing identity.
Let's look at your featured onboard cameras, and we have onboard cameras throughout the entire field, ready to follow the action. It is bad news for Sage Karam, not the start he would have wanted for this race. Being scheduled to start in 9th, remember, was in last row qualifying. And bump day for this year's Indianapolis 500 in the real world. But our competitors are all set to go. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start for the HyperX Indianapolis 500. The 2021 edition is underway from Indianapolis. One driver in trouble and ready. It's Brian Carey as we're under caution already for the first time today. Several more crash. Not the way that our competitors wanted this to start.
Not at all. As I'm looking over here, I think Justin Weaver got involved. Brian Carey Absolutely, like you said, James Krahula got involved as well. So at least 2-3 cars involved in turn number 1. The cluster of cars that were basically bunched up together between 1 and 2, that's what caused the crash. A little bit of also arrow wash in turn number 1 that might have affected the issue a little bit as well.
A multi-car incident to begin this 500-mile race in the first quarter. An unreal situation as the iRacing pace car is out. Let's take a look at the racespottv replay. And Kerry got very loose coming through turn 1.
And you can see that Krahula just got in head on first. Couldn't do anything whatsoever to try to save it. I think that was the other car might have been Mike Ridgely, who's trying to deviate but couldn't save it as well. And after that, I think Luis Gonzalez Nunez actually got touched in the rear and had a little bit of a damage on his diffuser, but I think he got out pretty much okay from that incident particularly.
A disastrous start to the race for many competitors. Chris Fowler already rolling to the pit lane still. Ken Hacker already out of the race. Christopher Mike Rigney, one of the drivers, also currently out. Here's the look from Stouffer. Nowhere to go in the secondary incident.
Unfortunate. Not the way we wanted to kick out the 500, but then again, Justin, that's how the 500 is. Sometimes it is scrapped. It is very hard. It is difficult for you to make the moves and try to organize yourself within a double file restart. So it's unfortunate, but it's racing, so they have to adapt for that.
Multiple drivers are still coming down the pit lane to get repairs done and/or for service. Joe Branch with a broken right front tire coming down. Ricky Harding coming down to the pit lane as well this time by. Scott Holmes also came down along with Richie Hearn, one of the drivers taking service during this sequence. And the tough break for Sage Karam is he had great track position for this race. Now he is pinned one lap down as a result of what he confirmed in sim to be a sim crash for him when he came to the starting grid.
So basically, he's in a Scott Dixon-like position if we are to compare real-world things, where Dixon was actually a lap down, right, in the last running of the 500, managed to claw himself back, but just couldn't get within the victory lane. But let's see what Karam does. Still, if you really want to be a lap down, Justin, it's right here on the first 3 laps, first 10 laps of this race, where you can recover yourself eventually and get yourself back within lead lap and then continue.
Still one more pace lap before we get underway, and let's talk a little bit about the HyperX Indianapolis 500 race for the pole that took place. It was a dominant performance for those affiliated with the Dreadwin and their power slide unit as well. 4 of the top 5 starting positions went their way in qualifying, and they talked about it where they found the right in-car adjustments to be able to have the pace. It was a very impressive qualifying day for them.
Yeah, Kinsella and Blocker was saying that Bennett basically got the adjustments, was actually working for that. Managed to get some really good adjustments. Everybody just follows through. Brian Carey, Bennett, Blocker, Kinsella, Bennett himself. So it's not surprising to see all those drivers coming into the top 4. And you can see now Carey was one of those guys in the top 5. You're going to see him on the inside trying to get that's Connor Harrington in front of him, but the weight jackers just way too much. The car steps out of the rear and everything else just breaks loose right behind him.
Gets pinballed around by several different competitors who had nowhere to go and were not expecting that in the first short shoot of the race. One go signal now on the racetrack. Adam Blocker, your race leader. Henry Bennett, Jason Brophy, Andrew Kinsella, Connor Harrington now the top 5. Several drivers gaining 10+ positions as a result of multiple pit stops during the caution flag period and repairs. Among the drivers already laps down or out, Karam due to technical issues before the start. Fowler from the incident. Kerry, Krahula, Hacker, Stouffer, Rigney. All out is Adam Blocker ready to try this again and control the field.
And just to know here, Justin, this is going to be a little bit more easier for these drivers as they're going to go into the restart. This is single file, so they're not going to be stressed out on who's right beside you coming into turn number 1 and then number 2. Then they can actually just set themselves up properly and maybe swap draft and things like that. So it's going to be a very interesting first restart for the race.
All set to try it again, coming to the start of lap 5. iRacing pace car is off. Off and away goes Blocker, green flag back up in the air. Good launch from Adam Blocker, as we'll see how drivers make their way through turn 1 this time. All single file except for the very back of the pack.
Karam already going for Harry Bennett on the inside, so the number 2 car is not holding back one bit. He wants that lap back.
Already Bennett shuffled around. Karam wanting that lap back right now. Will Blocker give it to him? Yes. Adam Blocker gives Karam the lead lap back for now. It's a matter of how Blocker now plays this with the amount of draft, especially down this racetrack. Now, talking about that weather, you talked about it a little bit before. Fairly decent amount of grip today. 107 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp today. Winds currently gusting at 4 miles an hour. That is currently blowing towards the turn 3 entry at the moment. So not too much wind of a factor today. Weather looking nice and consistent today.
Yeah, not a hot track whatsoever, Justin, so the drivers can adapt a little bit. But I'll be very honest, I don't know for peak temperature over here. We can see the weather going up a few Fahrenheit degrees, but so far, really comfortable race for everybody as we see Connor Harrington trying to sell himself in. So far, he can be within a comfortable position just behind his teammate of Jason Brophy.
And this is the important thing, getting yourself into a rhythm and trying to set the tempo. Aero wash is a major factor here at this racetrack. It should be worth noting, by the way, that Karam was passed on by Blocker. Ryan Otis, you're now following on board with the Synergy Motorsports Silver Machine, staying in this line in 11th position. It's a +6 after being able to avoid the trouble. You can see with the gyros, well, how much banking there is here, about 9 degrees, which may not sound like a lot, but it is a lot when you're carrying these speeds of more than 220 miles an hour through the corners.
Yeah, again, doesn't look like much here, Justin, but those bankings can be intimidating whenever you're on draft. And again, one of the things that we haven't mentioned, this is a custom fixed setup, so it's not open to where you can actually go and go for whatever preference you want to go in terms of setups. You have to adapt what you got, and you're gonna have to put those laps in. And knowing Lionheart, they put up the practice servers for you to actually adapt. There's nice. You guys now see the not a confusion, but the shuffle of positions in the middle, back of the pack, with Tony Schowen losing 1 spot in 20th first.
Of course, one of the drivers who came down to the pit lane during the caution flight period. Let's take this opportunity to remind drivers and fans alike about the fuel strategy today, Lorenzo, because in the solo run, drivers could go 28, 29 laps, but with a max amount of fuel save, drivers can go as long as 35 laps for this Hyperx Indianapolis 500 this year.
Yeah, they can go up to 35, maybe. Like, if you're really aggressive and you want to go Alexander Rossi already at the very start of this race, you might go up to 36, 37, but then you would lose so much time in the process that it isn't worth it for you to actually go for that. So the max range we might be able to see is 35, and they're going to have to adapt to that. So we might be seeing our first pit service come down right about lap 32, 33, if I have to estimate that correctly.
Don't forget there was the caution period that's going to extend that possibly by a couple laps as well. As you're looking as Chin trying to utilize the outside, it's been talked about in turns 1 and 3, you can make the outside work here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yep.
You just need to time it up right.
Yeah, you need a certain overlap already into the entry of turn number 1 and 3. and a little bit of negotiation with the other driver to lift off the gas a little bit into the exit out of 3 and heading into 4 to let the other individual go by. But if you want to force it, you can actually force it, but you would be riding very closely to the wall, so you can actually make mistakes in there.
Seen there that Chin was able to make the move on the high side as we look back to Tyler Graf. Graphics LPM machine does a lot of work for Lionheart Racing Series competition with the graphics for the series and whatnot. He's looking to have some incredible racing action today. He was one of the drivers in the Retro Series on Thursday, who was a contender at one point before having a long pit stop sequence and getting crashed in the second pack while trying to move up to the front of that respective group during a long run that had stretched for that race to 77 laps, Lorenzo, on Thursday.
And that is unfortunate. And in this race specifically, I think this is more important than the previous race in the Retro Series, because Graf and his entire team need a good result, because if you are to look at the Indy GP, where they were 3rd in the standings, they didn't perform well as they wanted to, allow the Alcantech simulations to come in and grab that 3rd spot for them in the team standings. So the double points again are going to be factored on this one. Let's see what the position will be for the drivers at the end of the race, and see if the graphics can actually make the jump once again.
Absolutely going to be very critical here, as should be worth noting that Chin has tracked down Andrew Kinsella just up the road from Tyler Graf, and that's now made this a battle for 5th position. Chin nearly to the back gearbox, in fact trying to build up that run. Now able to take it side by side down the straightaway as Kinsella gives him the space. And Chin is not looking like he's afraid to make passes. He wants track position to get back up to Harrington.
And if you wanted to test it going on the outside with this cousin fix setup, hey, it works. So you can actually build up a little bit of a confidence. Now you're going to have to build up a little bit of a gap, because right now you were right about 0.6 of a second away from Connor Harrington at this current moment. So far what we got is basically Adrenaline Power Slide in P1, Adrenaline Motorsport Red in P2, and then a triple crown of private label team Hype in 3, 4, 5.
Looking for the back gearbox now from Harrington. The private label team Hype machines all lined up astern, by the way, 3rd through 5th position. Incredible season for the organization here in Lionheart competition. A very talented driver lineup, a very talented organization looking to make some waves, as Matt Houston looking to try and make some waves from the 14th position.
Yeah, was contending right there with Matt Taylor for P13, P14, but Matt Taylor actually selling that position kind of like expensive for Matt Houston right now.
And let's take this opportunity, in fact, to talk a little bit about Taylor, because very strong season for Taylor this campaign. 1 top 5, 4 top 10s on the season, speed in every Lionheart competition he's taken part in. One of the hard chargers for the Retro Series race here for the buttkicker Indy 250 this past Thursday. He's someone that has a lot of talent and is one of the great stars of open wheel racing over the past year or so in Lionheart competition, Lorenzo.
And he's a guy that we should be keeping an eye on, because he's improving every single race in the ovals. You know he's fast. You know he's kind of fast in the road courses that he actually can get some really good results. But ovals is being a guy that, you know, constantly improving, getting those results, and can be a staple for the Alcantech simulations in further down the line. But a really good driver so far. I think he's the biggest gainer in the field at this current moment.
Up 15 positions, you're right about that. Next closest is Brian Beard, who's up 12 positions, who started towards the rear of the field among your non-qualifiers from Wednesday's Hyperx Indianapolis 500 race for the pole. As these drivers continue to get into a rhythm here, we're about halfway or so through the field run. It should be worth noting that Adam Blocker and Sage Karam have continuously swap drafted up at the very point of the field. That's built them up as much as a 9/10 of a second buffer to Henry Bennett, especially in turns 1 and 2. And this is what you have to do as a driver, is utilize the swap draft if you're the race leader. And this is a continuous back and forth that can happen. It's only this time, it's with Sage Karam, a lap down car, who needs a bit of luck with the timing of these swaps with the caution flag.
Yeah, and let's see where Karam would be located with the yellow flag, because so far he's within a really good position. Not being contended by Adam Blocker harshly. They're just swapping places. I think Bennett is in a position where he can be really comfortable. You know, do not push the car. We know that being the third car back in a pack can not be the easiest thing for you to actually move up. Pretty much going to be standing within the pack because of the air wash, so you can actually be staying back, save some fuel, try to work that 35 lap range that you want to go for in terms of fuel. Be comfortable with it for the remainder that you actually have to do. Remembering, you have to do minimum of 7 pit stops to make it to the end of this race.
Which is a lot of pit stops here at this racetrack, and it can be so easy to botch the strategy because several drivers did that for the Retro Series. You don't want to do it here for the 500-mile race either, Lorenzo.
Yeah, you really don't want to. You really don't want to get your numbers wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised if many of these teams and they have spotters, they have engineers, like in-racing engineers, not just for the drivers but the whole team. Just going with them lap by lap by lap, what they have to do, what the fuel range should be for that particular stint, and how their pace is in comparison to the other drivers in the field. It looks like a simple race for some of the people who are watching over here at home, over at your home or something like that. But the complications or the complexity for these drivers, it's a whole different thing. This is a real thing.
A lot of work was put in to match the sim to the realism required here at this track. And the aero wash in particular is a major factor we talked about. That is one of those things that have really been additionally added over the past few seasons or so across iRacing competition and official racing in particular. It can be really seen when you're matching line to line because it can be so difficult to follow line stern even if you're up towards the front, because the amount of wash can force you to have to lift and it ends up sliding the tires. Harrington lost a lot of time, for example, just a lap ago as a result of that aero wash.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things. I was talking to Christian Steele about this for another league that we were doing a 500 edition. That the easier thing for you to do is close in. Again, if you're the first two cars within the draft train, you can actually swap places. That's the easiest thing for you to do. If you're farther back, you kind of have to negotiate how you're actually going to approach this, because approaching is one thing, getting close to it, but overtaking is a whole different story because the air wash is so big, especially when you're up that close, that the car can just behave a whole different way that you're not expecting. It can catch you off guard, and whenever you are caught off guard, something bad can happen for you.
And a pit stop for Lionel Callisto from 13th position. So something going on with the 97. This is an early pit stop, or way earlier than we were expecting.
Really interested to see if Callisto has wanted to go for a short stint over here and try to minimize the time loss they probably would have to the end of the race. Different strategies already being played out at the beginning of the race. I expected that more to the middle of the pack than anything else.
Extended pit stop time. I think he may have scraped the wall possibly in the side. Ooh. In one of the short shoots possibly. Because here's the thing, you make contact with the wall, it can break your suspension quickly. You can see already the service 27 seconds.
Yeah, I think the suspension might be broken right there, and furthermore, I think your engine can actually be irrecoverable. So if you touch with the side pod, it damages the engine, it damages a little bit of the heat dissipator as well on the sides, and you do not get that speed back, like those miles, 3, 4, 5 miles back in your stint.
So Callisto now is at least 1+ lap down as a result of having to take an unscheduled pit stop. So we're now in the 25th lap of 200 for this 500-mile race. And as the private label team Hype Machines are trying to keep within range of Henry Bennett still on the racetrack. They have been reeled in by their teammate Joshua Chin, by the way, to make it a threesome amongst their organization among the top 5 in the main pack. And we talked about the aero wash. Harrington trying to utilize that high line to get himself away from that air, prevent that aero push from the back end of his teammate after losing so much time before.
Yeah, and again, it's complicated because whenever you are in the back of someone, the air wash is so different that he probably gonna have to take a high line. You guys just saw Harrington, driving the high line, trying to avoid as fast as he can that air wash you're gonna get from Brophy on the inside line. It'll still be efficient within draft because you can make up everything during the long straights here at Indianapolis. So not surprised whatsoever seeing the second car of what would be a three-team car draft, taking the high line to avoid an air wash and understeer that car into a wall.
Starting to snake their way down the front straightaway as well with the big amount of draft that can come into play because Chin's made it clear he wants to pounce if he's got the opportunity. How will he handle Harrington if he gets the opportunity is a big question as he stays within 3 car lengths of him for the time being as we approach our first window. The swap drafting, by the way, has stopped at the front of the field because Sage Karam has been able to build up a buffer you can see up the road from Adam Blocker. Blocker's actually lost 3-4 car lengths now as the tires have worn out.
Or Blocker's just trying to play, as defensive as he can. Not defensive, but conservative as he can, try to save fuel, allow Karam to beat the hair because he's a lap down and he's just as fast as Blocker is. Mm-hmm. So, just let Karam guide you as much as you can. Go to lap 32, 33, so where Karam might have to go to pit and Blocker can maximize the fuel range for that car. Go to map 4, 3, maybe 5 if you're feeling comfortable with that, and then go the full range.
Let's talk a bit about the fuel maps. How critical are those for a race such as this to make sure you have those dialed in and when you choose what fuel maps for what situation?
So this is something interesting as we're seeing Karam just weaving into the start-finish line to try to break away from Blocker a little bit. So basically, map 1 is full attack. It's the fuel mode that you're gonna have the most horsepower and most torque to maximize your fuel and go for those overtakes. Map 2 and 3, you can actually go for that, but you have to negotiate a little bit, but you save maybe an ounce or something like that in terms of fuel. 4 and 5 for basically conservative modes. 5 is full conservative. You don't go over 6 and 7 because these are for road modes, and 8 is for pace cars. So whenever you see a pace car, they're not going to be on anything else than mode 8.
Although it's very critical to know for when to utilize those mappings. As of note, Ron Hacker has elected to come on and pit the Synergy Motorsports Blue Machine in his blue car. Starting off the window, start of lap 30 for his pit stop. Interesting timing for Hacker on his own. And do you prefer to pit with a group of cars or on your own for a track like this, in your opinion, Lorenzo, especially with the impact of the draft?
Group.
How big of a group then?
So this is one of the interesting things, right? For me, the bigger the group, the better, because, and I mean this in the middle portion of a race, right? If you get to lap 150, people say that if you get to 167, that's where is the key range where you want to go in terms of being in the front. If you're at 167, 168, and maybe small group like 1, 2, 3 cars, so you can swap traps and stay within the leader. Other than that, it can be in 4 or 5 groups when you wouldn't have a major time loss, because all the time, basically, all the main overtaking points will be in the pit lane whenever the leaders come down, or the whole pack actually comes down into the pit lane for their services.
All that's going to be so critical for this race, too, to think about, as well as Chin. You see trying to utilize the bottom still in this grouping that is currently 2 seconds behind your race leader at the moment, Adam Blocker, who continues to ride and save. We're inside that first fuel mark of the race. Keep in mind that Ricky Harden, Scott Holmes, Tony Schauman, Samuel Ryman, David Martinez, Justin Weaver, Brian Greenlee, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Richie Hearn and go an extra couple laps on their respective stint as they pit under caution. So that's something to keep in mind when these drivers start peeling down in the next couple laps.
And those off strategies can be quite interesting. We saw that even in the top split a month ago, right, Justin, where those off strategies can play up a little bit. And you guys are now seeing David Martinez coming into the pit lane. That's Chris Sage Cameron now missing the pit box. Something might have happened to Damon right here.
Not what Martinez would have wanted. He had to back up and re-enter the pit box. That cost him at least a few seconds on the racetrack. He was in the back grouping. Larkamp has also elected to come down in pit, this time with Matt Taylor. So the Elkin Tech machines at the end of the lane, starting their respective windows. Sage Karam has also come down to pit for fuel.
Yeah, we kind of expected for Karam to come into this lap from other guys coming in. Tyler Graff will come in. Now you can see Martinez overshooting his pit box and not knowing what we would do now, trying to get himself lined up. Losing some time in there, about 3 seconds total, as now we're seeing the leaders come to the pit lane.
Blocker, Bennett, Brophy, Chin, all in this time by. As well, Tyler Graff, Ryan Otis joining them in the pit lane. It's a pit party. Has no major issues down on the entry for any of the drivers. It's just a matter of making themselves into their boxes. Drivers have been very tight against that pit exit for some of these drivers as Bennett ends up overrunning his stall. Henry Bennett will lose some time and will lose some spots as Brophy spins it into the wall.
Wow.
And Jason Brophy is stuck along the edge of the pit lane. Now he backs up into the lane after spinning it out, coming out of his box. Had a chance to move up to second or third position before the mistake.
Oh, this is disastrous. Just taking a look at what happened to Brophy over here. Gets out of the pit lane. And I think too much gas on the exit out of his pit stall. And the problem is, I think he actually broke his wing over here, Justin. So he's going to have to come down into pit lane once again to repair that wing. Surely he won't be bumped all the way back. And that's the one thing you really don't want to do this early on in the race.
Let's take a look at it one more time. As soon as he comes off the jacks, watch the line of the tire spin.
Wow.
And the reason he stays there is if he backs up, he's backing up right into the midst of traffic and potentially damaging their cars as more drivers come to the lane. Richie Hearn having to dodge several cars to make his way to his box. And he ends up overshooting his stall too.
Yeah, there might be, I think, an explanation to this because the pit stalls, they're not the easiest one for you to actually go and stop appropriately because you barely use any brakes in this race. Like, I think you don't even use brakes in the course, but you only use it whenever you come into the pit lane, then braking the car appropriately, as we're seeing Justin Weaver, which was the last car that needed to come into the pit lane. The thing is, whenever you come into your pit stall, the brakes are still trying to build up heat and it's easy to lock, so you need to let off the gas and just cruise around until you get to your pit stall, and then not slam the brakes, but go gently on the brakes and just let the car brake itself, right? And whenever you're coming out, the tires are still not appropriately hot, so you need to be very easy, about 50% into the throttle on the outside, and then gradually increase that throttle so you avoid the wheel spin when you come out of the pit stall. So unfortunate mistakes, but they do happen sometimes in these top conditions.
As a result of that mistake, by the way, Brophy, 26th position. Being inside the top 5 much of the way. So again, a tough break for Brophy. Adam Blocker has taken the race lead back. Joshua Chin will be passed by Andrew Kinsella now in turn 1 into the short chute. Those drivers right now for 3rd and 4th, already more than 2-3 seconds behind Blocker and Connor Harrington, who is within drafting distance of your race leader.
And looking here, Connor had the second best pit stall in the top 5 here, 35.5 for the private label team hype driver. The best one was Stephen Larkamp, which actually jumped from P8 to P5 with those mistakes. So Larkamp now a factor in this race.
Impressive from Larkamp is impressive for Harrington, who was able to stretch it an additional lap as well on the fuel. Keep in mind, Blocker is staying in line still behind Sage Karam, who is at the tail end of the lead lap in the 28th position. 160 laps to go, and now it's the matter of how these drivers play things out here, and it's going to be interesting once Harrington tries to get there, how things fare out as some of the other drivers continue to stay within a rhythm, while others try and utilize that second line to be able to build up a run for position. That's Fowler. Or rather, one more driver trying to make the move down the straightaway. That was Taylor, rather, around Joe Branch. Lap traffic, which is now starting to play a factor.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see traffic, becoming a factor right now in this track, because the lap is right about 41 seconds, but this middle of the pack, everybody's still bunched up, one together, separated. Each and every car you can see right in the back. I think that is Mike Razimas and Matt Houston were battling for position for the entry of turn number 3. But they're split up basically in average right about a half a second in between each driver. The only disparity is actually Connor Harrington and Kinsella and Joshua Chin, as we're looking to Ricky Harden coming to the pit lane once again. Apparently he had some issues, and that wheel looks a little bit bent to the side. Maybe suspension damage for the simracing merch esports driver.
Not what he would have wanted, as for Ricky Harden, going to cost him more time on the track. The reason he had to come down, the short chute in turns 1 and 2, which can provide massive attrition points. We've seen it already at the start, but also from drivers just pushing up the racetrack and hitting the outside wall.
And now Larkamp moving into P4 here. Chin is not having the best running of his second stint so far. Now, Henry Bennett actually might catch him. So let's assume that Joshua Chin is on a different strategy over here than the other drivers, not wanting to go full attack. Just, trying to save as much fuel as you can possibly save and try to gain an edge on the other drivers.
And that's going to be very critical to see how things play out for that, as side by side between Bennett and Chin now. Henry Bennett, remember, overshot his pit box. Passes on by Chin, as Chin continues to utilize that second and third lane compared to Bennett performing the bottom of the racetrack. By the way, this is what happened to Ricky Harden in the short chute of turns 1 and 2. Hard hit to the right side, immediately breaks the steering.
This for Ricky Harden, knowing that Ricky is one of these drivers that had a really promising qualifying, didn't make it, actually spun out of the very last corner. I think it was on his last lap. So seeing that going from back to worse is really heartbreaking for Ricky Harden right now.
Absolutely, it's not the night he had wanted to have so far. Now for Ricky Harden, he is 1 lap down, 29th position. Tyler Graf continuing his ascension to the field meanwhile. It's reeled right on into Chin. Ryan Otis and Jay Brandt also doing some good jobs to drive to the pack. You see them from behind.
But Chin, this is for me is appalling a little bit, because normally we would see the king of chins, just trying to dominate this kind of a race, wanting to be within top 5. See him drop back further and further more into the gridding. Now being overtaken by Tyler Graff. There is Ryan Otis and Jay Brent behind. I'm assuming there is something going on with that purple private label team hype car.
Yeah, Chin currently going only 226 miles an hour during the straightaways, backing off to 207 in the corners. Here's the onboard.
And he's going to be overtaken by Otis on the inside. You might be able to see the tip of the wing of Otis on the left-hand side as he goes into turn number 1 right now. And Otis actually dipped a little bit on the wall, but it isn't something major right now.
Chin nearly up towards the wall, in fact, as well as side by side. Otis trying to clear on by in the bottom. Still the pole being picked up by Chin on the outside line, side by side, still for position. And able to clear on by this time to the corner is Otis, so move Chin back to 8th position, 7 seconds back. Chin is only running 42 threes, the majority of the field in the 41 5s to 9s.
And meanwhile, I think something we should be looking up in the front as well is now Harry Bennett makes the move on Stephen Larkamp. The gap that a Kinsella has to Karin Harrington is actually coming down bit by bit, and now we're back to Chin getting pressure by Jay Brent right now on the backstretch.
Jay Brent building up the run, going to the inside. King of Chins again letting on go. And what do you think the play is here for Chin as he continues to drop further and further back here on the racetrack?
If I'm Chin, I will try to figure out what is going on, unless he's a strategy of, letting everybody back and then clawing himself back up on the second half of the race. But for me, it's really weird. This is not good.
He just hit the wall. Joshua Chin continuing to have a disastrous stint here. Now passed by Matt Taylor as well. Continuing to fall further and further back, nearly hitting the wall again in the short chute. This has not gone Chin's direction. Oh, by the way, should be worth noting the track temperature as the in-sim time is now 1:26 p.m. has skyrocketed up to 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, it was 107 just a little while ago.
Remember when I said that we probably weren't on temperature when we started this race, Justin? I was right. But one thing I can tell you definitely from Chin, he's not going to get the speed back. If that damage is what I think it is, you're not going to see the side pod dangling like you see sometimes whenever they actually hit the wall. But that kind of a scrap on the wall, it's enough for you to lose about 5 miles effectively on your car, and 5 miles on the IR18 on a track that you basically go 228 up to 232 on draft is the one thing you really don't want to have it as he gets wobbly on turn number 1.
Driver behind, by the way, is Mike Rasmus trying to make the move at the moment. As now Rasmus with the big run down the straightaway. Only 220 at the end of the straightaway for Joshua Chin as well.
Yep.
Chin
that scrap.
Go ahead.
That scrap. That pretty much tells us that the scrap. It's what causing the major loss of time. And I said he's not going to get it back.
Yeah, this is not what he wanted at all at this point. Right now, the next driver behind Matt Houston and Aaron Morgan, who's made his way up 10 positions right on behind. By the way, for your race leaders, Connor Harrington dropped from half a second back to more than a second behind once he got in the aero wash of Karam and Blocker at the very point of the field. So the lead has separated out. Larkamp has dropped more than 7 seconds behind Henry Bennett as well on the racetrack. As here is Ryan Otis, meanwhile, who continues to have an impressive season in Lionheart IndyCar Series, learning about these cars as the season has gone on. He's been great on the road courses. but the luck hasn't spread a lot of times to the ovals. So far this season, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s for Otis.
And the majority of his top 5s actually came at the road courses, his first one being at the Watkins Glen Boot course. But he's building up some respectable results in the ovals because he got a 7th place in Kentucky, he got a P8 in Phoenix. So those short ovals, he's actually making the ground up. So let's see how he does on a really super speedway, because this is the first real fast speedway they're actually tackling, which is actually larger than 2 miles. Actually larger than 1.5 miles, correction.
Absolutely. As near close contact here in over the radio of Luis Gonzalez Nunez just moments ago, trying to make a run on Chris Fowler, who is in 30th after Fowler hit the outside wall down the front straightaway. No caution, we stay green. Nunez was able to dodge by Fowler, who continues to run his way around the track.
And somehow, somewhere, I'm surprised to see Fowler not actually getting Nunez with that touch, but that was a scary moment nevertheless.
And Fowler, you talked about the speeds only hitting 218 miles an hour down the straightaways after being involved in the first incident of the race. As well, Chin has been cycled to 13th position with his issue.
Yeah, basically everything that Chin conquered in the first 10, he's basically lost it because he started P12, right? Justin. And for us, it's weird, as you guys now going to see the incident with Nunez and Fowler. Fowler, I think he wanted to give a little bit more room than expected, but basically grinding the wall, caught Nunez nearly off guard, but good avoidance from Nunez on the inside line.
Nunez 21st position. Definitely having a scary moment there. He's 21 seconds behind your race lead battle at the moment. Back to Chin once more. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
Now, I want to say for us, this is the weird thing for Chin, right? That for a 500 race, Team Joshua Chin underperformed. This is underperforming for Joshua Chin because we know he's a really good driver, and he actually won the top split 500 in 2018. So seeing him getting shuffled back lap by lap by lap on the grading, it's not unusual. It's very uncommon. So I hope he bounces back, but it's looking bleak.
Not the start he wanted to this first half of the race after charging his way up to the pack before. Ron Hacker now also within range to pass by him as up in front. They do have Ricky Hardin, they also reeled in terms of lap traffic. Andrew Kinsella, it should be worth noting, has also reeled his way within drafting distance of Connor Harrington up at the very front of the field in the battle for the top 3. You see those cars now make their way around the traffic.
Yeah, they made it around Ricky Hardin, but they nearly faced the same situation that the Nunez faced with Fowler, because Hardin actually grinded the wall a little bit and got a little bit slowed down, and the drivers had to deviate a little bit, and because of kinetic force, Hardin was actually pushed off a little bit into the inside line of the track, but everybody managed to avoid it.
Here is an interesting situation. Ron Hacker has called over the radio. He's coming into pit after a second stint of about 23 laps, rather 29 laps this time. Remember, he pit earlier than the rest of the field before. So Ron Hacker is burning a lot of fuel in that 21 machine, it seems.
I think he's burning basically map 1 all the way. He's not trying to save one bit. I wouldn't be surprised as he misses his pit stall here, Justin, but he's one of those drivers that has not been able to actually get a really good running so far.
Ron Hacker losing at least a few seconds in the pit lanes. We take a look at Samuel Ryman, who is up 13 positions, one of the drivers who did not take part in qualifying on Wednesday, but looking for his first top 10 of the season. He's known as a sim racing broadcaster for the Global Sim Racing channel as well. Looking very sporty here in this race tonight, Lorenzo. Currently, he's 20 seconds behind your race leader. He is also
Mike,
trying to close up to Tony Shalom. Yes, indeed.
my apologies. You know, these are marvelous things of sim racing, but having a really solid race so far, see what Ryman might be able to pull off, but still 7 positions away from P10. But again, those pit stops we've been talking about, those are big difference makers. If you can actually get out along with some other guys, as we're seeing Chin in the pit lane, he can make up those spots pretty much easily.
Only a 26 lap stint though is the interesting thing after the amount of time lost on the racetrack. So Chin taking a gamble here. We'll see how long the pit stop is into his box and on the jacks. And for Chin, it's an extended stop, so he did have something wrong with that race car. He's having to get repairs done in the pit lane.
Yeah, and he's going to be shuffled. My estimate, he's probably going to be shuffled back about 2 laps back from the leader. I don't know if he's going to be able to actually get those laps back. It's going to be a really tough challenge. But more importantly, I already said it, if he actually gets the side pod damage and that eventually damages the engine, he did not get the speed back. So it's going to take an inhuman effort from the King of Chins to actually get back within contendable spots.
Chin already has lost a couple laps in the pit lanes. We're following along with Damon Martinez, by the way, on the racetrack. He is currently 20th position. +5 on his race. And we talked about him a little bit during qualifying day, Lorenzo. Your thoughts on Damon Martinez as a driver?
Really good driver for the ovals, as we're now seeing Martinez come into the pit lane. I just want to take a look and see if he actually had some solid results. I think he had a top 10 result in this championship, but it's a driver that we cannot count out, even though he's in an off strategy than some of the other drivers. And I think in a race like this, if Sage Karen wanted the partner to work with the leaders, I think Damon Martinez needs to build up some steam and pick up some places.
Sage Karen coming in 30 laps for their stint. And Chin, by the way, the amount of damage on his car, how about 1 minute and 39 seconds repairs to put him a couple laps down? He's finally off and away. We'll see how that car now fares, but it's now a spot where he's going to need to hope for some attrition for valuable points. Larkamp is also now in for his service, now down in the lane. So the window's open for the second time in this race today.
Yeah. It's going to be tricky because now I'm seeing some separation between the drivers who are still within their stints, right? So getting closer to one driver to another is going to be really complicated, as we're seeing now Bennett coming to the pit lane. He was one of those drivers who did 28, 29 laps. So we're starting to see maybe the 29 lap stint becoming a little bit of a trend on this second, third, and maybe fourth stints.
And at this time, much more careful into the pit box, by the way, as Adam Blocker tries to lap Lionel Callisto and does. That's the 27th place car. He just passed on by. See how further along Blocker can go on this respective stint. Harrington still staying within range. One more car boxing on in. Taylor's already completed his service. Tower Graf has come on in for his respective service. He was the car peeling on.
Now let's see if another car come on. There's one more car, Matt Houston, coming in as well here, Justin. So it's starting to get a little bit busy into the pit lane. I expect this lap to be the busiest on pit lane if my calculations are correct.
I think so too, based on what we've seen throughout this race so far. Graf, 10 seconds in the pit lane. He's off and away for his respective service. Sam Ryman has indicated he's coming in this time by, as well as Aaron Morgan. So those drivers indeed will make it busy. The race leaders aren't ducking down quite yet, though. As they continue to extend the run a little bit further. Ryan Otis is now off and away and into the lane. Mike Rasmus also following him.
Yeah, so we're starting to see some of the guys at the top 10 starting to duck into the pit lane. Looking at Justin Bieber, Brian Beard as well into the lane, and nothing about Adam Blocker, Connor Harrington, Kinsella. So I think Kinsella might be able to save a little bit of fuel over here, stretch it out to 33 laps maybe. Let's see, because he's right behind Connor Harrington as we see now the leader coming to the pit lane.
Harrington trying to gain some time in the pit lane. You see a bit later on the brakes. Both of them now into the lane for their respective stops. Jay Brandt also coming in for service. Andrew Kinsella was able to extend it a little bit further. Remember, he extended the run a little bit longer last time, as into the box go both of the drivers. Mutual pit stops, by the way, during this race today, 9.6 to 9.8 seconds on average, as Harrington come off and away with a 9.8 and 9.9 for Blocker. Off and away they go, near identical in the box, in the lane. They'll stay near even separation down the access road.
Yeah, you know how much Connor Harrington actually gained on the pit lane against Blocker? One tenth of a second.
That's about it. On the racetrack, though, Blocker had the better launch coming off the access road, I noticed, though. Renzo was able to pick up an extra few tenths.
Yeah, the access road, there is a little bit of an interesting aspect into it. You can be very aggressive. Sometimes you can nearly go on the track, depending on circumstances. Like on the very bottom of the portion of between 1 and 2, and still be safe with it relatively. As we're seeing now, Kinsella coming out of the pit lane. I think he might be able to get some jump on Connor Harrington on the exit of the access road. But if you drive it aggressively, you can actually make up the ground a little bit.
Harrington's able to still drive on by, but as you can see, the difference now 2 seconds on your race leaders, with the lap car in between of Joe Branch. So far, the majority of the laps have been led by the one machine, Adam Blocker. What a dominating performance and dominating week so far. Nailed qualifies the only driver in his time bracket with the quickest time in the session in terms of 4-lap average. And now he's put himself into this spot where he has had the dominating pace. Justin Weaver has closed out this respective window. And at lap 69, it's Blocker back to the race lead.
Yeah, let's see how long they would go. We saw about 32 laps in average for top 10, about 29 to 30 within the middle of the pack. This is going to be really interesting because I'm starting to see the leaders maybe looking towards that lap 168 with brighter eyes, maybe 164 depending on circumstances. You know, thinking, oh, maybe we can actually make that and play conservative over here with Thiel. But then again, key is for you to get a 168, 167, and make it safely with Thiel.
New fastest lap of the race just sent by Kinsella, by the way, as Scott Holmes now looking to battle with the car off the pit lane. Scott Holmes side by side, in fact, still with Justin Weaver, who is looking to hold on to that position. Keep in mind, Justin Weaver up 17 positions from his starting spot. Started the very back of the field for this one.
And it's a clear case example of, you know, even though you might be in the back, right, everybody has a shot in this race. Everybody has a winning chance in this race. It isn't just first who actually has a chance. I think we only had one winner coming from the pole position in this race, which is Rick Music, which was the season 1, which was also the closest winners we had in Lionheart by 1,000 of a second. But still, you have it. Everybody has a chance. You just have to play your cards right, and the strategy has to be on point, and maybe the L5s help out a little bit.
Don't forget the most late changes as well was set back in season 7 with Kinsella with 67, but today has been leaning more towards the fewest, where it's been 36, set back in season 3. That's been the intriguing part of this race today. Harrington, by the way, has now lost an additional second. He's 3 seconds back. Kinsella's within drafting distance of him. And Kinsella has one of the fastest laps of the race, of 41 flat last time by.
Yeah, I really don't see if Connor Harrington will want to defend that. If he wants to, you really want to work something out, because their gap is starting to build up a little bit to Adam Blocker. Blocker's actually 3 seconds away from both drivers. I think Kinsella might want to share some draft with the private label team Hype Driver if they actually want to be within the drafting range of the number 1 car of Adam Blocker.
Now we'll see what happens here for these respective competitors. And Andrew Kinsella, keep in mind, puts in a lot of work for Lionheart competition with the setups in particular. It's incredible the work that he does to be able to build these cars week in, week out for the series.
Yeah, and setups that actually are not just fast, but they are very runnable as well. So nice to see Adrenaline and Motorsports getting some good setups, everybody. I haven't seen any complaints whatsoever from the drivers, so really nice to see that those setups are really good for every running that we had so far in the season.
See from the onboard, utilizing the 6th gear at the moment as traffic says hello. Drive by the lap traffic easily, but it did lose Kinsella some time.
And not major time, 8/10 of a second. Doesn't look like much, but he can get those back. You just have to maybe drive a little bit more aggressively than normal. We got within drafting range once again of Connor Harrington, but the gap is coming down. 2.8 seconds separates right now Blocker and Harrington.
One of the drivers who has really impressed me, though, is Brian Beard. How about his run today for his car? One of the drivers who didn't qualify, he's up to 11th position. It's a plus 18 for Beard. You can just see utilizing the 4th gear as well in the short shoot. Pardon me, Lorenzo.
Yes. No, sorry, it's me because I was talking with the microphone muted again. But good to see Beard, coming from 29th, clawing himself up, back up into nearly top 10 spot. And actually, he's challenging Matt Houston at the moment to try to get that top 10 spot. And he's not enough cycle strategy from the other drivers as well. So seeing him being a contender in this race is very entertaining to see. But that 4th gear is very interesting. I never see a guy driving 4th gear on a track like this.
Yeah, right now they're running 41.6s for them and the race leaders at the moment. And very impressive to see the drive through the pack. The biggest movers up 19 are Tony Shalwin and Matt Taylor, who are 14th and 9th respectively. And it can be hard to gain all that time on the racetrack, but it takes the right amount of execution, not just in terms of passing, but in terms of strategy, in terms of luck. All of it has to go your right way for you to gain those spots.
Yeah, you do. You need to be very... I'm not going to say time sensitive, but I'm going to say very accurate on what you do every single lap that you actually take over here. I've been told the main passing opportunities, if you're not on draft, will be on the pit lane, because everybody will get bunched up once again, and maybe a yellow flag will be the main overtaking opportunity, because how you enter the pit lane and how you exit the pit lane, how aggressive you are into it. But we haven't had a single yellow flag aside the lap 1 instance, so you're probably going to have to resort on your own arm and feet to try to negotiate the overtakes and move up some spots.
Indeed, and as a result, what goes through your mind as a driver when you don't qualify well or don't put in a qualifying time here at this racetrack to say, okay, how do I get myself there to that race lead from, say, 29th?
I would say personally, I would feel very comfortable because I would have no pressure whatsoever trying to make those moves, right? I would just take lap by lap by lap and have fun. If I find the opportunity to make the overtake, I will make that overtake work and try to distance myself away. But if you cannot do something like that, just stay back, maybe hope for a yellow flag to switch things up a little bit. But if you have situations like we're having right now, just full flat every single corner, try to work yourself out and maybe see where you're going to be at the end of the day.
And fun is so critical to remember, Renzo, for a race such as this, because if you're not having fun, it can impact performance, it can impact how you run the track, it can impact your aggressiveness on the circuit. All that is so very critical when it comes to driving around the circuit, as if you don't time yourself up well with that, it could end up hurting you so much on the racetrack.
Absolutely. You need this is not just for the Indianapolis, right? It's every single race that you do, regardless if it is a league, if it is an official race at iRacing, like I covered the Hyperx Indianapolis Series not long ago. But every race that you do, you need to have that fun mindset, because you need to extract the fun the best way you can, whether you're finding hard another driver on track, same class, or you're overtaking slow cars in a multi-class racing. So every bit that you can extract and enjoy, it's already a very positive thing that you can put up in your checklist in terms of sim racing and racing in general, as we see Brophy in the pit lane.
Brophy, 25th position right now. Off and away, he made it 29 laps on his respective stint just now. It's been a rough sequence where he's been trying to get himself back in the going of things, as we look back at some of the other battles starting to form up on the racetrack. This is Adam Frazier that you're looking at right now, center screen. Tony Shallon right behind. I mentioned Shallon gaining all those positions. But what about Frazier, who had not the best of qualifying days, to say the very least? He's looked much better and more comfortable in race trim today.
It's one of those situations where, you know, sometimes you don't feel okay with the quali set, or you make up a mistake in qualifying. And those drivers, they pretty much are much more experienced than me to know that even though their qualifying was underwhelming or underperforming, they know they have a shot at the race, because again, everybody has a shot here. So they just have to make their best to try to get within those positions. And Frazier, coming from P24 so far, now P13, and trying to hunt down Mike Rasmus, but he's far away back, nearly a second away. That's the thing you really want to do, you know, just work yourself easily and have fun.
For Frazier, by the way, it's a plus 11 on the race indeed. Trying to get himself to the next grouping of cars that includes Mike Rasmus and Joe Branch. Joe Branch is in 26. Rasmus still in the lead lap in 12th spot on the track.
I think he's not the biggest gainer, though. Looking here, the biggest gainer, I think it is Brian Beer, 19th position from P29 up to P10.
Matt Taylor and Brian Beard, along with Tony Shallon, are all in that grouping of cars.
Yep.
Keep in mind, Taylor is in the grouping that features Ryan Otis, Jay Brandt, and himself at the moment, separated by about 1 second apiece.
Matt Taylor up 21 spots in P9 now. Yeah, he's the biggest gainer, not Brian Beer, but they are the two biggest gainers so far in the track, of the biggest gainers on track. So good to see, as you guys now see on the screen, who are the biggest gainers. Matt Taylor, 19 positions, Beard, 18 positions. And then you can see right at the middle of the pack, Tony Shallon, I think, with 15 positions up.
Most spots lost so far going to Jason Brophy with minus 21 on the race for those still active. Brian Carey, who started towards the front, involved in the lap 1, turn 1 incident. Minus 27 is the most positions lost overall on the racetrack. Keep in mind, with our pit stints, we're already approaching the window again in the next 10 to 15 laps for drivers to duck their way towards service for the third time or so under green flag conditions today.
Yeah. Looking here, Larkin might be the first guy who might come into the pit lane within that top 5. He's all by himself. He's on 23 laps. If you're all by yourself, you're probably going to do 29 laps, maximum 28 if you're burning way too much fuel. As we're looking into Chin again coming into the pit lane for his scheduled service.
Only 24 laps, and when you have the damage that you talked about, how much more does that burn the fuel compared to before as he goes into his pit box?
It burns considerably. I think it isn't exponential, but you probably burn up like 50% or 25% more per lap than what you normally burn up. So these in full length, your stint's going to be shorter than usual.
That explains the 25% difference on that window before, as also of note, Ron Hacker has elected to come in for his respective pit stop or service. Looking at Harrington, meanwhile, as he continues to work his way towards a big gaggle of traffic. Adam Blocker trying to drive around some of that grouping of cars at the moment. Impressive day for Harrington. Remember, on the GP layout for this track, Lorenzo, he ended up getting involved in trouble, and that was major for the championship entering today.
Yeah, getting in trouble with Mike Rasmus right on the exit of the backstretch, and basically nullifying his whole race. He had to climb himself up. I think only got 2 spots at the end of the day, but the damage was done. That basically opened up a huge leeway to Adam Blocker to open up on Harrington. But again, it's double points here, so depending on circumstances, that advantage can be nullified if Harrington actually gets the winner here, and Blocker just decides to have an abysmal day at the remainder of the stint.
I don't think he's going to decide to have that. It's going to come down to scenarios to pop up. You never know what can happen in Indianapolis.
Yeah, we'll never know. It's one of those unpredictable races. We've seen races being ended in the final lap, races being ended with 3 to go, or races that were ended on strategy alone, that let's just try a different strategy over here. Let's go for something more aggressive in terms of fuel, try to go for an overcut, but it's not working out. So it's those interesting scenarios that you try to find yourself, not only in sim racing, but racing in general. We even saw that in real life with some perspective at some points, that Indianapolis, in the most unpredictable moments, you can have like race-defining moments that can make or break someone's life in this track.
It's so very critical to win at this racetrack. Everyone wants to do it because it can be something that can pop up during your career for a long, long time. As by the way, see on screen the battle for 11th position, Matt Houston, Mike Rasmus battling 21 seconds behind, making their way around Chris Fowler there. That was used as a pick to break up the battle. One of the drivers that we talked about in the rough circumstances, let's check on Sage Karam. We can, because he is right now 22nd position now. He's been picking off lap cars one by one, passing by them before Blocker can lap him.
Yeah, again, he's kind of like opening up the seas for Adam Blocker just to go through, right, and helping Blocker in terms of maximizing the fuel efficiency. That's why Blocker went 33 laps on his stint prior to the pit lane, and looked like it will be the same thing again for Blocker. But the job that Karam has been doing as he ducks out of the pit lane per Grand pit stop, by the way, for Karam, that's 29 laps on the gallon on the field for Karam, as that was a wild entry.
One of the fans watching alone on the YouTube version of tonight's action is described it as the longest cha-cha-cha dance in motorsports. And you can see why, as Karam is into the box. Camp as well made it 30 laps on his respective stint. Elkin Tech Simulations NHR esports machine having a very solid day, as Karam's off and away in front of him.
I'm surprised to see some of the cars. Oh, we have an incident on the front front straight on the exit of turn number 4. Nearly got Blocker on the exit.
And the caution is out for just the second time tonight. As now that changes everything, and that's going to be big because Karam is going to be a lap down as a result of that.
Oh, that is unfortunate. And that was his teammate, by the way, Justin. Damon Martinez crashed out of 4 and nearly got Blocker because there was some kinetic energy that pushed Martinez a little bit into the middle off the track, but Blocker managed to dodge away pretty much skillfully and avoid also debris on track.
Violent hit from Martinez puts us under yellow conditions. Let's take a look at what happened on the Race Spot TV replay as, man, that's a massive snap of oversteer coming off the corner.
Yeah, that is massive. I really want to see if actually clip the curbing into the last turn, but nevertheless, I think the way jacker was way too much for that car to handle on the last turn. And once you lose, if you lose a little bit of the back, it's very hard for you to catch it under normal conditions. And now you're going to see very, very busy pit lane over here, Justin.
This will equalize all the strategies on fuel with 105 laps to go. Should be worth noting that Larkamp did not lose a lap, I believe, in that sequence. No, yes, he in fact did. He's going to have to take the wave. Karam will also be in a situation where I think he can take one. As off in the way goes many of the drivers into the pit boxes. Richie Hearn, though, will cycle to the race lead as a result of this caution flag. He's the one who ends up capitalizing on this, as Blocker will be the first one off the lane.
Look at Harrington over there.
Now Harrington almost got raced off hard by Kinsella for the battle for second off the lane.
I think biggest gainer here might have been Jay Bren here. Justin might have jumped Ryan Otis and Tyler Kraft on the pit lane, about 2 spots up for the number 15 car.
But the focus goes to the driver who is yet to duck down for now, Richie Hearn. Keep in mind this is a quick yellow racetrack, so he needed to be able to come down, or has to come down eventually, you'd have to think.
He needs to come down. 29 laps for Richie.
Sage Karam is scored in front of him, I believe, so there is a chance of the possible wave going for him to get him finally back in the lead lap. There is the chance to go for the lead lap, though, too, you have to think, Lorenzo. He's been running the back much of the race.
Yeah, but looking at Richie over here, he's diving that inside line, so I wouldn't be surprised he comes down into the pit lane. And what he wanted to do basically is, try to go a lap extra. Maybe psych yourself back to the leaders of this race and be within a very contentious position of, maybe having a lap extra in terms of fuel during the long run.
He's now in the lane. Wave rounds coming around. Among them, is Sage Karam. Jason Brophy also cycles back to the lead lap, so 23 drivers are on the lead lap for this upcoming restart. Coming towards halfway, Adam Blocker, your race leader. Harrington, Kinsella, Bennett, Brandt, the top 5 as Richie Hearn completes his service of 9.1 seconds. Scored towards the back. It should be worth noting that one driver had a massive technical issue during this caution flag period. Scott Holmes, he is still on the lead lap, however. Your thoughts on how this has played out so far, Renzo, for the first half as we're approaching halfway of this race?
It's been a really interesting first half of the race so far, and so far really dominantly from Adam Blocker. Giving no chance whatsoever to Connor Harrington or anybody else to come closer to the leadership of this race. And some very, very interesting strategy battles and mind battles within top 5 and top 10. I can't wait to see again what the second half of the race has in store for us. And again, remembering that you have to make it to 168 to be 168, 169 to be very, very safe in terms of fuel. Can't wait to see as we go for the restart.
Adam Blocker ready to go. 103 laps to go from Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Hyperx Indianapolis 500. And domination from the one machine all day today. He's off and away. Green flag is out. We're back to racing. great start for Blocker as Harrington tries to utilize the second line. And now is in his best position possible to make it a back and forth for the race lead. Harrington down the backstretch. With the run, he takes the lead for the first time today from Indy. So private label Team Hype is now one at the top of the pylon. As Harrington leads his first lap around Lorenzo.
Yeah, perfect moment for Harrington to lead that lap. You know, the restart kind of brought back the status quo between all drivers within the pack. Now really looking forward to see if Adam Blocker is going to swap drafts with Harrington or to have Kinsella, his teammate, of sorts, coming into the back line, the diffuser out of that blue car, the number 1 car, and allow Kinsella to become a factor for the lead battle.
Blocker trying to build up the run to build himself back towards the 44's rear end. Gaining a lot of time down the front straightaway with 101 laps to go. Halfway this time by, coming up to the stripe. Sage Karen, by the way, has stayed stationary in 22nd of note. Jason Brophy stationary 23rd. Matt Taylor looking to gain a position in 7th and does. But Blocker is right back there to try and go for the swap draft, if he elects to choose so, at 100 laps to go at the flag stand.
The line taken from Blocker apparently indicates that he's 1 to 5 for that P1 or share some draft, but I can be proven wrong quite a lot over here, because Blocker, if he wanted to go for the run on turn number 1, he would have been slightly aggressive, but he is probably playing it safe with Conrad Harrington at this point of the race, because they all want to take, I think, 2 more pit stops in terms of 30 laps on the field, and then just scrap it up with the final positions in the final laps of the race.
Reynolds is under attack from Brian Beard, meanwhile, as Beard continues to charge his way to the pack. Taylor's the biggest mover with plus 21, but Brian Beard looking to match even with that. Couldn't get the run he was looking for towards the inside. We'll have to reset. As up at the front, again, Blocker lifting and not taking the run. He's trying to get close to him, Lorenzo, but I'm noticing he's lifting and coasting for a couple of seconds on the entries.
Yeah, you need a little bit of lift in terms of going to turn number 1, because you're carrying way too much speed, so you need the lift regardless of what line you take, because if you just go full flat, you're basically going to take a little bit of a straw on the wall. Whether it's going to be the inside or outside wall, it doesn't matter, but you need that lift. So not surprising to see Blocker, just playing conservative for now, and if he finds the opening, he's going to be starting swapping draft.
After all, fuel could be a very tight conversational point from this point forward, because depending on how the runs fare, it could get tight for the timing of some of the pit stops. You'd have to think, right, Lorenzo?
I think so, because right now they're all 7 laps within the stint. If they go 27, then we'll be right about lap 123. If they go for 30, that's 153. They probably would do 2 stops and a half, so they need to extend that over 30 liters, maybe 31, 32. They go 64 on the next two stints. They could be safe. They could be coming up right around lap 170 for the final pit stop.
And that might be what Blocker's thinking about here at the time being, keeping 41 5s at the moment. At the head of the field are these drivers. And it's looking like, at the very least, the rhythm continuing to stay afloat for these drivers, coming up to 96 to go this time.
Meanwhile, the guys that we thought would be contenders for this race, like Sage Karam, all the way in the back, clawing some positions all the way up into P21 at the moment.
keeping nice and single file towards the very back of the field. Just hasn't been able to make the moves that we were expecting to at least attempt at the moment. So, at the moment, continues to be Connor Harrington, who leads for private label Team Hype. Just her second major leader of the race today. And keep in mind, with 11 laps, we talked about it before, the majority of the laps was Jonathan Goke in this racetrack, 243. Entering today, Sage Karam 63, Kinsella 79 in terms of active. Adam Blocker had just 59 active coming into today, Renzo.
And every lap that you can gain a good club, top 5, of course, Goke was actually a really good driver within the 500. Competed a whole lot of these 500 races, excelled in some of them, but letting the new generation to come by and take their chances. And good to see that the guys are taking advantage out of it, you know, trying to maximize their laps in this race and play some mind games again with some of the other drivers and see where they will go next.
Who do you feel is someone to keep an eye on for the second half of the race as a result, and who we haven't talked too much about of?
Good question. I'm probably gonna pick Tyler Graff over here because he's been quite quiet in this race. Hasn't made any aggressive moves or trying to claw up some spots. He's basically been playing safe with the traffic so far. Just right behind Jane Brent for the top 5 position. If we get another yellow flag, I think we can see Graff starting to be a little bit more aggressive towards about lap 130, 140 as we were starting to see the weaving on the start finish line.
The snakes starting to come into form here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's take a step aside when we can as Connor Harrington leads over Adam Blocker, Andrew Kinsella, Henry Bennett, Shea Brandt. Your top 5. You're watching Racespot TV and ESTV for coverage of the Hyperx Indianapolis 500. Welcome back to Racespot TV and ESTV's coverage of the Hyperx Indianapolis 500 from iRacing's virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Justin Prince, Lorenzo Bonner with Hugo Wees in the producer's seat for today's camp action. Cameras provided by Esteban Baulu, TrackCams22.com. Right now, it's Connor Harrington who leads. Adam Blocker has been continuing to ride in his draft in second position. And Lorenzo, that could be critical for the fuel marks here.
It can. I'm just doing quick calculations over here because if they actually come to the pit lane for 29 laps, that will be right about lap 126, 127. And then if you go for the 29 laps once again, that is going to be right about lap 155. So you're probably going to have to come for a final short stint in the final maybe 50 laps of the race. And you're going to have to basically kind of reset your whole race, or hopefully yellow flag to come out and be on the lead lap.
And that's going to be very critical later on in this race indeed. Big picture playing here is to the inside wall. They go this time with the snake for a good portion of the straightaway. Keep in mind, Andrew Kinsella's staying within reach of these drivers, as well as Henry Bennett and Jay Brandt. Round of the top 5. Brandt into the wall. Brandt into the inside fence. He slides it up into the racetrack as the caution flag waves. And a hard hit for Jay Brandt, who pushed up into the outside wall coming off of turn 2 and ricocheted off the inside.
Yeah, that's the traditional, arrow wash play over here. Unfortunate for Jay Brandt that just got pushed off way outside of the lane. Merging to the cars, that would have been his fault because that's kinetic force just playing its part over here. And I wouldn't be surprised here, Justin, if that resets the status quo in terms of fuel, and I mean literally everybody comes down to the pit lane.
Wouldn't be surprised as well to see that, as here's the replay.
Oh.
Hard contact and ricochets right into the path of oncoming traffic.
Now I just want to take a look over here and see who actually part of that traffic that he was coming right behind him, because that is indeed a very, very hard crash. That is, the first car was Tyler Graft. After that is Matt Taylor, and Matt was the first on scene, and Ryan Notice managed to narrowly avoid it.
Becomes a 2-stopper from here, keep in mind, so it's gonna get intriguing on how this all plays out for these pit stops in the pace and the speed, as Harrington is your race leader with this caution flag. Sage Karam with this caution also got up to 19th position after his technical issues at the starting grid for today, as here we go. Blocker and Harrington playing games nearly into the attenuator, trying to play the games.
Look at that pit lane here, Justin. I told you it's going to be really busy, so expect some movers and up and downers up in this field. Strategy is going to be essential. I can tell you with definite words over here, they do not have feel for 2 stoppers. They're going to have to do a short stint with about 14, 13 to go if they go all the green all the way.
Very interesting indeed, if that indeed is the case for these competitors now. Ryan Otis, Samuel Ryman, Stephen Lurkamp all stayed out. Under this caution, Harrington was the first driver off the lane, followed by Blocker, Bennett, and Kinsella. Tower Graf rounding out the top 5 of the race off the lane. Interesting call from Otis. Those drivers have to come in the next 10 laps or so if they elect to stay out for good.
Yeah, I think they're playing with the fuel strategy right here. So these 3 drivers, they probably hoping that they come into the pit lane. That would be right about 70 to 76, 70, something like that to go. And then hope that they can go green all the way and maybe get yellow flag towards the latter portion where they probably would have to come out for a short stint. Then again, everybody cannot make with 2 gallons, not 2 stints of fuel all by themselves. They can't.
In our words, the draft is going to be very vital, you're saying, Lorenzo.
Yeah, vital. It's you need to work with the draft in this first stint, maximize the fuel range, try to get to that 34, 33 stint in terms of laps, and then the second one. The second one is going to be trickier than the first one, in my opinion, because you probably want to have 34, 35, but the max range, and then pray to God that nothing happens in between that.
So the dice have been rolled. With the one to go signal, 3 drivers are attempting to stay out here. Ryan Otis, Samuel Ryman, who at one point had a 1 minute and 11 second pit stop in this race, and Larkamp, who had to take a wave at one point after getting trapped a lap down. Remember, he was as high as the top 5. That puts Harrington in the midst of traffic. And how big do you feel those older tires will be for the cars in front here? And how will that factor in for the traffic, in your opinion?
It's going to be tricky for those guys to make the overtakes at first. They're going to need to build up at least a lap or 2 in terms of build up in the tire heat buildup. Try to make the moves on Larkamp, Ryman, and Otis. But after that, it's all on patience. If they want to play it patiently, work the draft out to see how it's going to go, I probably would do that. Just try to play safely for now, and then go for the moves whenever adequate. Because then again, these cars, they're gonna have to be on the burnt up rubber. Aero draft is not the easiest for you to make up over here. It's not, you can get a good run, but the overtaking is kind of difficult. So can't wait to see what's going to happen. That shakes up things a little bit.
It absolutely does. Some interesting wrinkles for this race. Now we're about to see how the wrinkles all unfold and how these drivers look to smoothen out their respective strategies as this race goes on. Ryan Otis in control of the field. Pace car is off. Green flag waves. We're back on our way with a great launch from the 95. Oh, and they're side by side, running for third with Harrington getting to the outside of Larkamp.
What a jump.
Timed it up near perfectly to be able to already make one pass, and now Adam Blocker is pinned right behind the 62. Kinsella's also lost a spot to Tyler Graff off the launch. Ryman going for the race lead. Harrington electing to follow the line, as Samuel Ryman is now in the lead for the first time today.
Well, Larkamp got loose on 3. That would allow Blocker into the outside line, going to P4. Well, Larkamp's car getting a little bit wobbly in the between 3 and 4. That they have to keep mind on that.
Oh, in trouble for Sage Karam in turn 4. He is slow with significant damage in the 2 machine. As they battle side by side for second position, Karam has made contact with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. We are not under caution, however, as Ryman continues to break up that draft and Harrington starting to show some flustering.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Karam. 2 tires off. His suspension is broken. That's race done for Sage Karam. So all eyes will be on Blocker and Harrington and Kinsella, especially on those that have a chance to go for the 2 wins over here. And now you look at the replay, what happened to Karam.
See contact with Nunez. They bump, and Karam straight to the safer barrier. A tough break for Karam, who had a lot of optimism coming in today with a strong qualifying performance, then started with the technical issues the second the grid started. Had to work his way back onto the lead lap, and now day possibly done for Karam, as Blocker has made his way around Ryan Otis. Only Samuel Ryman remains of the drivers who are up at the very front who stayed out. Ryman looking to break the draft, but Harrington with a massive run, 4/10 the gap down to 3.
And let's see how actually going to be working out for Ryman over here, and if Harrington and Blocker play aggressively with the leader of this race. And meanwhile, the third of those cars who have actually pitted on the L5, which is Tyler Graff, is actually catching Ryan Otis in the backstretch.
What a gamble again for some of these drivers to stay out. Harrington trying to utilize the second line. Oh, this is well. There has been a pass between Kinsella and Graff for position back and forth. Graff able to defend though on the high line this time. Kinsella lines it back up astern. For the race lead though, Harrington to the point, rips it away from Ryman.
Now Ryman, all he has to do is try to ride the best he can, the wing out of that private label team Hypercar, and maximize the fuel range. If you can get through lap 70 with 73 remaining, I can see something very interesting brewing for that number 63 car.
Yeah, this is going to be an intriguing call overall for Ryman. To see how this plays out for him after running the back much of the day today in the 63. Now it's the question, though, of how Blocker tries to close up the gap now. Blocker 7/10 behind your race leader. They've been able to pull away by nearly 2 seconds from Ryan Otis and company. Oh, and Larkamp slow down the back straightaway. He ended up going all the way to the apron, hitting some of the bumps in turn 2, and nearly heading to the inside wall.
But what a save from Larkamp. Avoided the wall on the outside. Car was slidey. He actually had to let off the gap, checked up the whole field, but managed to keep it clean on the track. I told you that car was wobbly on the restart.
Well, it definitely wobbled its way nearly to the inside wall in his regard. Larkamp now back to 13th because of this wobble.
Whoa.
Good car control to avoid that safer barrier, though.
Save of the day so far.
Karam is back on the racetrack, by the way, after 3 minutes and 12 seconds of damage repairs, so he is back rolling in his number 2 machine as Adam Blocker makes the move on Ryman, gets the space, and now move Adam Blocker to second. Race lead separated by 4/10 once more as a result. They drive with the wind going right behind them and to their left.
And the true stopper is basically a correct myself. The true stopper, I think that might be that will be a possibility. That is the good possibility. If you work yourself well on the field and have to go for the final 2-3 lap stint refueling. But now you can see the middle of the pack getting a little bit closer, and then driving having some connection issues as now Blocker will go to the lead here, Justin.
Adam Blocker back to the point with a massive run down the front straightaway. Had speeds of more than 227 miles an hour heading off into the corner. Now Blocker looks to try and hold on, or will they go for the swap draft? Yes, they will. Harrington with the swap. Now they look to break away. They have a buffer of more than 2 seconds from the rest of the drivers on their strategy.
And basically the two guys are on the off strategy, kind of breaking off the pack a little bit, you know. And that's the thing I think Blocker and Harrington, as you can see, the swap of the lead of once again want to have, you know, just instead of 3, 4, 5, 6 cars battling for the lead, you want to have as little as many cars you want to get. 2, 3, that's the perfect number you want to have for battling to the lead.
Absolutely. No swap this time as Harrington shuffles the gears into the corner entry. Coming up to 74 laps to go. This time by Karam is officially out of the race. He joins Brandt, Martinez, Kurhua, Kerry, Ken Hacker, Christopher, Mike Rigney as Harrington back to the point.
And I'll tell you one thing here, Justin, even though we're watching these two, if I'm Tyler Graft, I would try to hold nothing back whatsoever. Do not hold field, go map one, chase Ryan Otis, go for that overtake, and then stay behind Ryman, because every lap that you lose the gap in the green flag to the leaders is the one lap you really will be beating yourself up that, oh, I wish I had that gap towards the final laps of the race that I probably could have contended for the win.
Harrington leads the lap. Blocker gets the swap. Once again, Adam Blocker to the race lead. Who will lead going into turn 3 is the big question. Meanwhile, you mentioned Richie Hearn. He just got taken 3 wide by Jason Brophy and Scott Holmes just a moment ago. And they nearly wrecked it coming into turn 1. It should be worth noting they're back single file now, but it was a sketchy moment for Richie Hearn, who was shuffled by 2 different cars.
I got shuffled by 2 different cars, and the biggest problem is that Richie actually scrapped the wall on the outside of turn number 2. As we're seeing the switch of the leads once again between Harrington and Blocker. I don't know if Hearn has damage on that car that affects the engine in the top speed, but so far keeping within the draft out of Brophy and Scott Holmes.
And again, this is the efficient way of doing it if you're the race leaders, to gain time and pull off and away. You can battle back and forth like a pendulum swing. Larkamp has indicated he's coming in this time by as well, by the way, in the 62 machine. So the window is now open for the drivers who stayed out under the last caution. Ryman, Otis, and Larkamp are now in their window, while Blocker is back up front. Larkamp is now into the lane for his scheduled service in the Alcantech Simulations NHR esports machine. To pass by the pergola and in for his stop. Ryman is also indicated this time by. He'll come in from the 3rd position.
I wouldn't be surprised if Otis comes into the pit lane as well.
Wouldn't be surprised either. Will he follow suit? Ryan Otis does not, as the top 2 now have a massive buffer of 2.8 seconds between them and Tyler Graf. As they swap for the lead, Tyler Graf ended up swapping for 3rd position as Ryan Otis let him go.
And now, if you're Tyler Graf, what do you do, right? You lost yourself some contact to the leaders. You're probably going to have to hope for a yellow flag to, get closer to the leaders, bring up the status quo once again between all the drivers within the pack, lead pack, and then see if you actually have a shot to contend for the leadership of this race.
Up 10 positions, was a contender in the Retro Series race we talked about. As Ryan Otis will come down for his service this time by. You see him now down to the lane in the Synergy Motorsports silver car. So now, that brings everyone to the halfway point of their respective stint at the moment. And as a result of that buffer traffic, it's now 3.1 seconds between Harrington, Blocker, and Graf. Here comes Blocker for the swap once again. Up to the point. The dominant driver now leads once more. And for Adam Blocker, keep in mind, he's your points leader as talked about with 3 victories on the season, 8 top 5s and 8 top 10s and 3 poles. Entering today's event, it's been a dominating one. Should I check myself 4 poles? With this race today, he has been a man on a mission, looking to add his name to the record books, Lorenzo.
Yeah, not only that, but he's also a back-to-back winner here this season. Can we see a triple back-to-back winner this season? He's in a good position so far, and nobody has actually accomplished that in this season so far. And I think we haven't. I hope to be corrected, but it's been rare to see this in Lionheart Racing Series, a back-to-back winner.
Absolutely. It's an interesting question to see if Blocker can pull that off, or if Harrington can pull off what would be one of the biggest wins of his career. Don't forget, Blocker is looking for his 2nd win in this race in his career as well.
And the only driver who actually has a chance with the Intercontinental to win this 2 times, the only driver who won 2 times being Jonathan Goke.
Absolutely. Keep in mind, Adam Blocker several times has won back-to-back over the past few years. But it's just a matter of, can he get 3 race wins on the try. Looking back at some of the air battles, by the way, Richie Hearn, his battle has settled on down to, with him in 14th. He was as far back as the 20s for much of this race. He started 32nd, Lorenzo.
Yeah, what a performance from Richie Hearn so far. Despite some connection issues, he's having a really good, solid run so far. But still keeping on track and having a solid result so far.
Indeed. And solid for him as these two pull away, Lorenzo.
Yeah, if there's one driver I really want to mention that had been quiet after his first the pit stop fumble has been Jason Brophy here. Dustin going all the way back to P25, P26. I think he was even a lap down at some point, hauling himself up back to P12. It's a little bit far from Tony Schowen and Adam Frazier, but he still has room to make up and get within top 10. Of course, not the result he wanted. He started P3, but so far, a really good recovery race from the private label team Hype Driver.
Very solid indeed from Brophy after his incident down the pit lane. By the way, to answer your question, for those who may have been asking about how many times has a driver won 3 in a row, how about Blocker himself back in Season 7? Only time it's been done. Belle Isle, Motegi back that season.
Impressive.
Impressive indeed. From an impressive driver who is still in second. Looking through as some of the air drivers continue to shuffle themselves about. An air good driver, strong performance. Brian Greenlee we haven't talked too much about. He's up to 17th as well. Up plus 18 on the race for him. And the thumbs up cancer down LPM machine.
And I see Greenlee having a really good result, being the last place car on track, you know. So seeing him calling himself up, he's about 0.6 of a second behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez. So he has some shots to claw up a few more spots in the feud, but then it's a little bit of a work to try to reach the next driver, which would be Richie Hearn, and that 3 car pack is actually in right now.
He is closing in some time right now to Luis Gonzalez Nunez, in fact, as Nunez trying to break a bit of draft, trying to catch up to Aaron Morgan. Luis Gonzalez Nunez with a lot of fanfare, but he hasn't had the luck this season. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, in a lot of cases in Lionheart competition, has shown great speed, but hasn't had the luck. Now he shows the speed to get himself up to 15th.
And finally got through Aaron Morgan right there. And unfortunate for Nunez because he was the driver that got involved with Stage Karam on the restart of this race that didn't trigger the yellow flag. He got some contact on the left-hand side pod for Nunez, but still managed to keep that on track, fortunately.
Indeed. Richie Hearn, by the way, trying to shuffle around with Scott Holmes still. Scott Holmes for Sector 5 continues to have a very solid day.
Yeah, a really good solid run from Scott Holmes, despite that 3 wide that was mentioned. You know, going 3 wide at Indianapolis is not the... Of course, real life, it's not unusual, as we're seeing some drivers coming into the pit lane. Just taking a look whose drivers are there. I think that is Tony Schowen coming into the pit lane and Matt Taylor coming into for their second to last service. 59 laps on to go. 20, 30, 29. They're pretty much safe towards the end of the race.
They made it 27 laps on their respective stints. See how it works out for them as they're already off and away, with Taylor with the longer stop, 8.9 compared to Shawin's 8.5. But back towards this battle involving Richie Hearn, of course. He has real-world experience, Lorenzo, here at Indianapolis. Had some strong runs in the real-world Indianapolis 500 in the 1990s in particular.
True. Some really good runs from Richie Hearn, of course. Now just sitting back and being on the simulator, but still that real-life experience. We talk about Sage Karam, you know, having that experience, coming P7 in the last running here in 2021. So every experience that you have on the real life on a track that you drove before is something that you can actually welcome beforehand to a race like this.
Indeed.
Kinsella in the pit lane? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. He's in for his service. Lights up the tires a little bit, trying to get it back up to speed towards the pit speed. As now, it's a critical time for the rest of the field. He is the first of the main leaders to come in for their respective service. .9 seconds into the pit lane. Ron Hacker has indicated he's coming in this time as well. All this is while the race lead had settled on down for a while, so those drivers for the time being stopped swapping, Lorenzo, similar to the last run where they calmed down and went back single file like this.
Yeah, now it's all mind games as Kinsella will come back a lap back, but he will be within the reaching draft out of the leaders. Meanwhile, Bennett comes into the pit lane, will do his service. Connor Harrington signified he's coming also for the pit lane as well, so the leader of this race will do his pit service right now.
Henry Bennett off and away as Harrington had to enter the pit lane with a car in front in Ricky Harden. How much does it impact you having a lap down car in front of you for the pit stop?
It does quite a lot because you don't know where he's going to brake and where he's going to slam the brakes to try to get within the pit speed limiter, right? So it's a little bit of unpredictable, but I think the time damage has been very minimal to Connor Harrington.
Let's see how it fares out overall. Harrington 9.9 seconds in the pit box. That respective service. Adam Blocker continuing to stretch it forward. And now Adam Blocker ends the stretching with a pit stop.
I honestly thought that Blocker is actually going to overshoot the pit lane's entry limiter.
He ended up making it at the speed limit, it looked like, at the cone. Very tight when it came to that sequence, as now he rolls towards his pit box for the second to last time in this race. Tyler Graff, Adam Fraser, Scott Holmes also in, Lorenzo.
Yeah, everybody's going to come in for the pit lane. Now, you know what the strategy is now, Justin? There's just one. Map one, full send every single lap.
Yes, indeed. And the question is, where will the full send cycle Harrington? Well, it will cycle him just in front of Blocker, all while Beard and several more come on in.
And just let you know really quickly about Blocker not losing the spot to Harrington, but the rejoin for Blocker had a little bit of a tense moment because he nearly clapped the grass on the last split second before rejoining the track safely. But it was a good rejoin, but nearly clipped the grass, and that could have been disastrous for the number one car.
Yeah, that could have been massively disastrous from a dominant driver in this race. As more service coming on in. Matt Houston, Mike Rasmus coming in for their respective stops. Richie Hearn also coming in. Ryan Greenlee able to extend it one more lap. Be among the last of the leaders who have to take service. And here's the interesting wrinkle as these cars come in to think about too is, don't forget about Samuel Ryman. He is currently net P3 on the racetrack as a result of his strategy call.
Yeah, but he's right about 11 laps minimal before coming into the pit lane. What he has to do right now is try to get closer to Adam Blocker and try to use the draft so he can save a little bit of fuel, because if he pits with, let's just say, in 11 laps, that would be right about 41 to go. You would basically go for 29 laps and pit with 7 to go, and it would have require a yellow flag to try to save your own race.
Greenlee in for his service. Swap draft engaged for the race lead at the stripe. Adam Blocker gets the lead lap by 4/1000ths of a second. But to get back to Ryman, he is 1.5 seconds behind all of this still. That's going to be the tough part on his respective strategy. Now coming to 20 laps on his stint this time by. Swapping once again, Harrington for the race lead. Takes it away.
And looking here, Graf had really underwhelming pit stop. We saw him being P3 in our standings, right, Justin? Shuffled back all the way down to P9 at the moment, the Graphics LPM driver.
Indeed. Yeah, Graf again had a 10.3 compared to the 9-second stops. Spitters have 40 seconds in the box for Graf, so that's a sign that Graf made a mistake on his pit stop sequence.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Ron Hacker has now had to come down to the lane, hearing he may have had trouble with Brian Greenlee. That sent him immediately on a tow truck.
Yeah, you can see, you just saw Greenlee all the way down to the back of the frame where Blocker is now leading the lap once again. Greenlee's tire is very wobbly on the right-hand side front, so he's going to have to come down to the pit lane and go for an extended service here. Unfortunate for the number 38 car.
Unfortunate indeed. No caution for that situation just described, by the way. It was down the back straightaway. Here is that situation where Greenlee comes out. Greenlee comes up.
Oh!
And forgets there's a car there. Or at least doesn't know it.
I think his spotter didn't clear him of a car on the right-hand side. Even Brian Greenlee apologized effusively to Ron Hacker. He understood that it was the spotter who didn't let him know it was he had a car rejoining, or it was a car side by side. Really unfortunate.
Indeed. One thing to know, there is still a tie for second most positions gained between Taylor and Beard, who are 6th and 7th respectively. There were also battles such as this one. Tony Schowen is up 24 spots in this race, with Jason Brophy providing pressure.
And because we know Brophy wants to climb as many pods he wants to climb, because if you like to look on the team perspective battle right now, Adrenaline Motorsports Red might come away with the lead over here, Justin.
You never know when it comes to this type of race. This could be the turning point for that organization to take away that lead with some of the trouble for Joshua Chin. But it's been a great recovery from Brophy. I don't think either of us were sure how Brophy would respond after losing so much time in the pit lane, but it seems he's responded well and took it in stride to be able to recover to get to this point with 46 to go coming this time.
Yeah,
we're now under 46.
Yeah, we're under 46, but it is impressive nevertheless what Brophy is doing, because with an incident like that on the pit lane, that surely takes a little bit of your confidence, because the one thing you really don't want to do is fumble in the pit lane, have a front wing damage, have to repair that front wing damage, get bumped all the way back, and have to climb yourself all the way back up again. And what Brophy is doing has been nothing short than amazing, as now he goes for the move on Tony Schowen.
Into turn 3. Brophy right against the white line. Schowen trying to utilize the third line. Brophy, though, not able to get the pull as the better launch coming off the corner for Schowen. Able to hold on to the spot at the start and finish line.
And Brophy's car got really loose in between 3 and 4, and that's why he didn't seal the movement on the inside. But that outside line proving to be stronger than the inside line for overtakes here, Justin. We saw that time and time again that those diamonds on the inside, they needed some clearance from the other drivers to let them go through.
And Tony did not want to let by the private label team Hype Machine. Bit of traffic is up the road from him, by the way. They are reeling in Tyra Graf. They also have Ricky Harden, who they may be able to utilize for this battle as a pick. As now they make their way through the corner once more. Brophy not able to close up compared to where he was before, it seems. Struggling a little bit to close the gap. Mike Rasmus, in fact, keeping within arm's distance now. The car in front. 3/10 loss last time for Brophy with his attempt to pass.
I think he overshot his tires a little bit on the entry of turn number 3 and 4, and has to calm down the tires a little bit more and more. But now you can see Harden being ineffective on the outside line, blocks off Shawn, and will bring Brophy into the conversation.
What a massive check there caused, and just as we expected, lap traffic was expected to play a factor in this fight. Brophy takes advantage, and Brophy moves back to 9th position. I don't think that's how he scripted it, though, obviously. Tony Shawan might not be happy after that one.
But then again, what can he do? It's traffic. Where do you want him to go? I can feel nothing but... I don't want to feel pity for Ricky Harding, but it's a tough situation to be the back marker and having guys battling for position so close to you, and you basically don't know what to do. Basically, you have to shrug it off and try to do your best to keep yourself away from those guys.
Ricky Harding, the last car running on track, by the way. 5 laps down in 24th. 25th on down on your pylon are out of the race as a result of incidents.
We might see Ryman coming into pit lane over here, Justin, as we're still looking into Justin Weaver having a good recovery race so far as well.
Keep in mind, Samuel Ryman needs to extend it somehow by another 6 more laps. That's easier said than done, as we see Justin Weaver working behind Joshua Chin on track. He's your sim experienced driver profile for today, as, my goodness, in front of him, Joshua Chin into the inside grass. Joshua Chin able to keep it off the wall. We stay green. Apologies there, as that was a scary moment for your sim experienced driver profile competitor.
Wow.
Let's take a look at what happened. Wow, against the outside wall, avoids the inside wall. He touches that inside. He might have ricocheted up the track.
Yeah, because you can see the suspension is pretty much broken for Chin, but what caused him, what was his undoing, was basically clipping that inside of the curbing off turn number 3, offset the car into turn number 3 on the outside, clip the wall, and good car control from Chin, however, to keep that car from rejoining the track, as we have about less than 40 to go. Will be less than 39 to go, as they're right about the start-finish line.
Ryman and Larkamp have already completed their service, so Psycho, Bennett, and Kinsella upwards a little bit more. Larkamp had to come down additional time, believe, though, so he may have had a problem in his service. 10 seconds off and away. So Larkamp has lost some additional time on the track in a lap.
Yeah, I had to reverse the car, Larkamp, on the entry of his pit stall, and thus effectively losing about 2 seconds on his pit total. So that's unfortunate for Larkamp.
Unfortunate indeed, and loses him the lap is off and away he went. Brian Beard, meanwhile, the man on a mission, is in 6th. And he is your fastest car on the racetrack at the moment. He is trying to close up as much time as he can. What a drive for Brian Beard.
What a drive. Coming from P29 all the way up to P26. He's one of the two biggest gainers on the track. The other one being Matt Taylor. They're pretty much equal in terms of, gaining spots on the track. I think they found the right recipe on how to gain positions on the track. Even though Matt Taylor has about 6 laps of his advantage in terms of fuel, but he might be safe nevertheless whenever he comes out to pit lane with about 30 to go.
Indeed, right now, in a good spot. Just 1 top 5, 2 top 10s for Beard entering today, by the way, in 7 starts this season. Known for his abilities in multiple different types of cars, and versatility and adaptability are 2 major things, Lorenzo, that have been critical in his career.
And being able to adapt to any situation that it is thrown against you, if you're thrown all the way back, thrown all the way front, has been really good so far. And some impressive results so far from Brian Beard. Let's remember, he actually got a top 5 at the road course in the Indy GP. He started 6th, so he's a very good driver, regardless of what kind of track you are, long speedway, short speedways, and the road courses. He excel depending on the circumstances as well.
Ryan Oates of note has come into the pit lane. He lost a lot of time on this respective stint. Was 25 seconds behind the race leader before he ducked down to the 95. And another one overshoots the Lollipop Man. More time lost for Oates, now 1 to 2 seconds in the pit stop sequence as he's off and away.
I think total time will be right about 36 seconds for at 37 rounded for Ryan Oates as he comes out of the pit lane.
Indeed. We are inside the fuel save number to get to the end, but we aren't expecting the drivers to pit for another 10 laps here, Lorenzo. It's going to be very critical for drivers to know how much fuel they need to put in exactly without underfueling the car to the point where they're waiting on the tires, or overfueling the car to the point where they're waiting for the fuel.
And I think right now we're at the point of the race that they're pretty much comfortable. If they have like fuel calculators and things like that, they've pretty much been running on map 1 the entirety of the stint. So the map 1 with map 1 calculators, they will tell you, oh, you might have to fuel about 15 to 14 gallons or 16 gallons you might have to fuel over here for you to make it to the end. So it's those small things. I think the key strategy here is how you come into the pit lane and how aggressively you come out of pit lane and then rejoin the track, because pretty much the pitting part is pretty much equal for everybody.
By the way, let's get the opportunity to look through those statistics of Justin Weaver that we were looking through before, shall we? Because remember, Weaver is your driver profile for today. 73 starts, 35 top 10s, 14 top 5s, 1 victory that came at Texas back in season 6. As well, his first start came at Atlanta back in season 5. An impressive drive for Weaver. He's still in the lead lap, up 18 spots in this race here today at Indianapolis, Lorenzo.
And I think he's probably trying to match the best result he has this season so far. We know Weaver only raced 3 weeks in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, and he's far way down into the point standing. So seeing him probably having one of his best results this season is really good for him. We'll give him a performance boost.
It's so very critical to try and keep the performances up, as now looking towards the back straightaway, Luis Gonzalez Nunez trying to get around a cluster of traffic. Able to do so. Richie Hearn was among the drivers he had to have go on by. That was Larkamp they were making moves on, who was only going 190 something miles an hour because he had just had to come down to the lane again for extended service.
That's really unfortunate for Larkin, but you can see it looks like the wheel is kind of like offset over here. Let's just try to look on the straight line. Yeah, that wheel's still offset. There might be some slight suspension damage over here, Justin, but the car's still drivable somewhat, but it's not going to be fully efficient on speed.
Can tell you the issue happened lap 164, turn 3 in the short chute where he hit the wall. First time we've seen someone hit the wall in that part of the racetrack, as Matt Houston has ducked into the pit lane. 22 laps, just 22 on this stint. Matt Taylor's indicating he wants to come in as well, so the window is open.
Another one overshooting the lollipop.
And that's in reference to, for the drivers on their side, they have a lollipop man essentially telling them, stop right here. And you overrun that lollipop man, well, you end up having to back off and try and get behind said person as Taylor is in.
And so everybody will go basically for the full stint, you know, don't want to conserve fuel anymore. So 29 laps is where you want to go. And another driver overshooting the lollipop man. You guys don't see the lollipop man over here. As Justin said, you're going to see on the client side. But the one thing you really don't want to get it wrong is the lollipop and the positioning of your car towards the tire mechanics.
Now down to 29 laps to go. Check that, 28 laps to go in this race. Now it becomes the question, when do Blocker, Harrington, Bennett, Kinsella come in, and how much fuel do you put in, to be precise? Brian Beard made it 25 laps on his stint.
Yeah, so basically right now for Beer and everybody else pitting right now is a full stint, basically 7 liters, or that's right about 18 gallons, 18 gallons of fuel, if I recall that correctly. My mathematics is wrong on the gallon side, but it is a full fuel for the majority of them. The other guys might go about 3/4 of a full stint, maybe 4/5 of a full stint in terms of fuel,
which can save you about a couple seconds in the pit lane, hence the importance of it. Is Richie Hearn we follow along with now, the Elite West Motorsports machine. Looking very well in this race. Adam Frazier in front of them, elected to come down this time. Henry Bennett has also indicated he'll join Frazier this time.
Now 29 laps for Henry Bennett, so he's coming. Harrington will have to come on the next lap. Blocker has 2. Actually, there's another lap to go if he decides to go for 29 laps. But the problem for Blocker is there is traffic right in front of him.
So do you try and pit before you reach the traffic then, Lorenzo, or do you try and stick it out? So you think so?
Go for pits. Go for pits.
It would only be 29 laps into a stint. They need 25 laps on the fuel. The next driver in front of him is Joe Branch. Back to go up to the second and third line. In fact, this time, does he take the left turn? No, he doesn't. He doesn't take that advice, Lorenzo. He's going right into the thick of things.
That's why he's a pro. I'm actually the pleb over here just commenting for you guys as Harrington stays out for one more lap.
Andrew Kinsella, though, came in. He made it 32 laps on his stint. That may be the magic number they're looking for. 32 laps to close things out. Harrington has lost time in the traffic, 1.3 seconds, by the way, on the racetrack, as Kinsella makes his way to the box.
And let's see if Connor here is actually going to make himself up to the box to go through turn number 4. Blocker would now come this time by. I don't believe for a second that Harrington will hold back.
And Harrington's coming in with them.
That was really close for Harrington because he came a little bit over speed into the entry of the pit lane, but he managed to slow the car down just in time to avoid a penalty.
Here we go. Most valuable pit stop of the race. Blocker onto his marks. Harrington already trying to get moving from the jacks. Harrington 9.1, Blocker 8.5. So a quicker stop for Blocker The tough part's going to be Lionel Callisto is in front of Blocker. You can see the distance growing as they make their way down the access road.
2.1 seconds, and that might increase a little bit because the thing is now Callisto is on the exit of the track. Now Blocker can build up the speed because he has a car to build up that speed, right? The thing, Connor has no one to work with in terms of draft as they go into turn number 3 and 4.
Tower Graf has come in for his final stop as well this time by. So he is now in for service. Mike Rasmus, Richie Hearn are the only drivers in front of the leader who've yet to pit. Samuel Ryman is 17 laps into a stint. Justin Weaver is yet to pit as well. As Blocker looking to try and join a small club that will form between him and Jonathan Goke if he can hold on for 24 more laps coming through 23.
Last thing that Blocker wants is the yellow flag.
Absolutely. Samuel Ryman is falling behind Henry Bennett, by the way. That's where he is on track. That is 7 seconds behind your current race leader, who has now got a gap of more than 2 seconds and growing. Next car in front, Ricky Harden. Then it's a clean track for your race leader, or your net race leader, I should say.
It's just insane how Blocker managed to build up that gap prior to the pit lane. I think clearing himself up the traffic was key, having Kinsella and the other car, just sticking right in between them and giving that arrow wash, dirty air into 3 and 4. That might have made the race to the adrenaline power slide driver.
Only 2 times has the interval been 3 seconds or more in this event. Season 1, Split 2 with Brad Eisenberg. Then back in Season 4, Jonathan Goke's second, or rather first, time winning the Hyperx Indianapolis 500. Look at this battle starting to form up though. Graf right in the thick of things with Matt Taylor, Brian Beard, Jason Brophy, all fighting hard for position in a top 6 position.
And Brophy's looking like crazy for a position, and it nearly went 3 wide into turn number 3.
Graf is the first one through the cluster. Jason Brophy able to pass by Brian Beard on the outside as well. This is now officially 4P6 as the last of the drivers have all pit. Now it's the matter of, can Samuel Ryman get the car she's looking for to hold on to the top 4 while the dive goes on for Taylor.
Let's see if Brophy actually going to try to follow through there. There's a little bit of leeway between both cars. They're going to go side by side, and the only benefit in terms of this will be Brophy because we'll get closer into turn number 3.
More space given between these drivers, at least a car length and a half. Graf, though, on the high line, able to get the pole over Taylor.
Comes Brophy.
Brophy trying to line it up. Taylor trying to line it up even more so, though. Taylor, with a bit of aero wash and tightness, forced up the track. He switches to the top as Brophy goes bottom.
And there's Larkin right in front of Graf, which might play out a little bit in terms of traffic. Let's see how Graf is going to be able to clear away from Larkin as they go into 3 and 4.
Larkamp moves to the high side. Graf able to clear by easily. Taylor picks up some draft from him down the straightaway. Brophy will also pick up draft from the both of them. Brian Beard losing touch, though, to these cars on the older tires. Graf has the freshest tires in this group. Matt Taylor, 6-lap older rubber. Brophy has 5-lap fresher rubber than Taylor.
It doesn't look like much, even though it is in terms of lap bus, but 5 laps in terms of tires in a track like this is a little bit, it plays a little bit of an advantage for the cars that have the better rubber, because you put so much stress on that front right and maybe on the back ride as well, depending on the custom setup that we're actually running, that might give the advantage, towards the cars that have the fresher rover to actually have a little bit of an overlap on the other cars.
Oh, that's so very vital. Andrew Kinsella, by the way, you see in the pylon, has passed Samuel Ryman as well for 4th position. Brophy, though, utilizing the 6th gear down the straightaway. Down to the final 16 laps of this race. Boy, what a Hyperx Indianapolis 500 it has been. A race where we've seen domination from Adam Blocker much of the day. Jason Brophy looking to try and move himself up forward, though. Diving to the inside, loses more time, and has to reset.
Remember when I was talking about being the 3rd car back to trying to make the moves and having the effect of the arrow wash being played out in full effect, trying to make the overtake? There we are. It's going to be complicated for Brophy to make that move. He needs to do it actually on the straight and clear himself off, and hope that the driver that is actually leading that back, if it's the 3rd car back, is not on his line during the corner entry.
All of it's so very difficult. What do you do to try and overcome that, Lorenzo, then, if you're that 3rd car in the line as Brophy nearly scraped the wall?
Just do the same thing, full 100% pressure, and let's see if you actually got a really good run and the arrow wash doesn't play in full effect. And even though they're gonna weave, they're gonna complete the snake a little bit, sometimes you can actually get yourself benefited from them. Let's see if it works out for Brophy.
Of note, Harrington has passed some of the lappers, and now it's a battle for a top 5 because Samuel Ryman could only make it 26 laps, Lorenzo. He has to pit around that mark he projected, 14 to go.
Yeah, unfortunate for Ryman, but if we have a yellow flag, this brings out a little bit of a very, very similar situation what we saw in like real life races, where those guys who pitted late actually can make up the ground on the restart. Let's see now. Brophy goes on the inside.
Brophy looking to rip away the spot now from Taylor. Taylor, though, all the way to the high line in the clean air once more. Final 13 laps now as Brophy again can't clear. And all of this is allowing Mike Rasmus right into the mix of things. Tony Schowen also closing on in near contact into turn 1 as Brophy washes up.
I think for Brophy, he needs that outside line because the inside line is not proving to be effective for overtakes. He can still stay side by side. So you might have to duck and weave and go for, like a boxer would try to duck and weave and go for a jab or an uppercut or something like that, and try to catch him off guard and go for the upper lane.
Losing some ground again, though, in the corner. Final 12 laps. Of note, Harrington has gone through all the traffic. It's still a 2-second gap, though, between Blocker and Harrington.
Harrington needs a yellow flag, otherwise it's nearly impossible to reach with 12 to go.
I think a lot of these drivers will like that right now, Lorenzo, at this point, but you never know.
Blocker.
Yes, indeed.
Everybody except Blocker would like that yellow flag very much.
Don't want to jinx it. But he'll come up to 10 to go this time by. What a day it's been for Adam Blocker. A very dominant performance, led a majority of the laps so far, and now looks to close it out. 10 to go at the stripe in the Hyperx Indianapolis 500.
It is basically going to be doing something that hasn't happened since our first running of the Indianapolis 500 at the Lionheart IndyCar Series, joining Rick Music for winning from the pole sitting position, despite the gap being a whole way much than what Rick actually won. He won the first outing of the 500.
Now, as this is all going on, Beard and Rasmus is now fighting for position. This is 8th spot on the track. Looking to peek up to the 3rd line is Rasmus, but not able to build up the run. They've lost touch to Brophy, Taylor, and Graf within the past couple laps or so. And Mike doing whatever he can right now, Lorenzo, just trying to get himself to the 2nd line to try and get the cleaner air.
Yeah, but I think there is a little bit of draft that is still working for Brian Beard a little bit. It's minimal, but that's what actually is allowing him to retain that P8 position so far and not allowing Rasmus to get those lines that he wanted. If I'm Rasmus, I try to go for the higher line, get out of turn number 1 and 2 and try to ride the draft as fast as you can for go through the attack.
All this for valuable points for this race. Johnny Shalit also within range of these drivers by 1.1 seconds if things were to start heating up amongst these competitors. Overall, though, what a race it's been, Lorenzo. From start to finish, just 3 caution flags on the day.
And just 3 caution flags on the day. Really clean race so far. We're actually gonna beat by a long shot so far the fewest cautions we ever had on the 500. The fewest cautions were 7. We're gonna only have 3, and this is really good. Everybody just train, prepare themselves very well for this 500. With Adam Blocker winning from the pole position, but everybody who's finished this race, well job so far.
What a job in this race as we look now at Bennett and Kinsella. They're looking to fight for the final step on the podium. Kinsella nearly washed up towards the wall that time, though. It takes some effort to get to the back end now of Bennett.
Now, there's a really good question, which I'm frowning my head over here, Justin. If you're the Adrenaline Motorsports Red crew chief or the boss right now, would you let Kinsella and Bennett to go all out, fight for the podium spot, and risk a possible crash that would take away leading points from the team standings? Because so far, judging by drivers, they have the better advantage in terms of the private label team height, because Connor's in P2. The problem is Brophy's in P7, and he might actually lose position if he drives the car too much to Brian Beer or Mike Rasmus and Tony Schauer maybe.
That is a good question. If they want to fight it out or take the points. They are on the same team, remember. So it'd still be the same points differential for the team itself. But look at this, Kinsella with a big run down the front stretch, now within a car length. Now under 5 laps to go from the Brickyard. They have a large street of traffic up the road. Keep in mind, they have Larkamp, Weaver, and a couple others who are within range to potentially be factors here in this group.
And the one thing you really don't want is overdrive the car with about 4 to go right now on the track. And if we got one more lap on the green and then we have a yellow flag, Justin, it's all over. We finish under yellow.
Approaching the point of no return, as it's called, as Kinsella forced up high to get around the traffic. Lost him a lot of time, and that may be the one shot out the window there, Lorenzo.
Yeah, really unfortunate. That was Larkamp, who's going really, really slow at the entry of turn number 1 and 2. I don't know if he was actually letting the cars go by, but yeah, he actually let them go by on the outside line. Didn't want to force way too much.
3 to go at the stripe. Ryan Otis has completed his final splash of the race. Battling continue between Beard and Brophy.
I was going to say Beard up one spot here. It's going to be interesting to see what Brophy now does.
Brophy wants this spot back. This is for 7th. Brophy to the inside, shuffling through the gears. Sliding on up, near contact. Brophy clears on by to get himself back up into P7. Here, though, with the switchback, goes for the run back to the inside.
Look at Rasmus.
Rasmus, indeed, with the big run. Trying to rip it away from Brophy now. Couldn't do so. 2 laps to go from Indianapolis. Rasmus now with the opportunity to try and pass Brophy. He'll try it. Brophy, though, with the better run on the high line, able to hold on for now. This is all while Adam Blanker is coming down the front straightaway. As they wait for the battle for position, the white flag waves. Final lap is underway from the Brickyard.
If I'm Mike Rasmus right now, I would not go for the move right now and just wait for the start-finish line. Try to get a really, really good run and clear himself away just before turn number 1. And if I'm actually getting that outside run, well, that would be even better.
One more chance as they have lost the toe from in front. Rasmus clears on by, and he'll take the spot. Will Brophy go for the switch is the question. All this is while Blocker is ready to join elite company. Out of the final corner goes Adam Blocker. Move over, Jonathan Goat. There is a second 2-time winner of the Hyperx Indianapolis 500. Blocker becomes the second 2-time winner of this event. An incredible drive from Adam Blocker.
What a performance, man. What a performance.
What a performance indeed. It's a rare feat to be able to win 2. He's done just that. It's a rare feat to win from the pole. He just did that to become the second driver to do that. And now he gets to celebrate what would be a huge victory for the season. An incredible performance from Adam Blocker.
Not only winning from the pole, winning more than once in the Indianapolis 500, but again, being the only driver who would win back to back to back, again, like 3 times in a row. And he's the only one who actually did that prior to this race. And now he's just, reinstating the dominance that is Adam Blocker at the IndyCar Series here at Lionheart.
144 lead laps for Adam Blocker in this one tonight. Absolute domination. And I believe that may also be a best for this event, as he does a Polish victory lap. Here in this one, let's take a look at your race results presented by CarNox. Blocker wins by 2.6 seconds over Connor Harrington, with Henry Bennett in third. Andrew Kinsella, Tyler Graff round out the top 5. What a top 5 for Graff. Matt Taylor finishes in 6th, with Brian Beard, Mike Rasmus, Jason Brophy, and Tony Schowen rounding out your top 10. 11th spot goes to Adam Frazier, Richie Hearn, Scott Holmes, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Matt Houston, the last on the lead lap, with Samuel Ryman, Justin Weaver, Lionel Callisto, Ryan Otis, and Joe Branch finishing inside the top 20. Some trouble for Chris Fowler early on, still recovers to 21st. Larkamp recovers from his multiple issues to finish 22nd. Ricky Harden, Joshua Chin, Brian Greenlee, Ron Hacker, Aaron Morgan, Sage Karam, Jay Brandt, Damon Martinez round out the top 30. And the last of your starters were James Grahua, Brian Carey, Chris Stouffer, Mike Rigney, and Ken Hacker. Incredible finish today from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as that brings us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. Adam Blocker continuing his celebrations and his trek to HyperX victory lane. and a chance to bring home the trophy and a magnitude of prizes and drink some milk after what was a solid performance today. Lorenzo, what a drive from Adam Blocker.
What a drive. Basically a perfect week for Adam Blocker in terms of, standings as he decides to celebrate throwing that car into the wall. You can see now Harry Bennett and Andrew Kinsella joining him on the donuts. So that is a well-earned victory for Adam Blocker. And that will open up the seas even more to Connor Harrington in terms of team standings. And what a race so far. What a dominant performance. But I really am looking forward to see also this team standings in terms of what the points have brought us here after we have the results compiled.
Absolutely. One of the drivers standing by right now, I believe, is Connor Harrington. After what was an impressive drive from him as well. Second place, 39 laps led for him. Private label team Hype. Let's bring him on in for our HyperX post-race show. Connor Harrington now joins the broadcast booth. Connor, do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Connor, first things first. Second place run today. How are you feeling about your performance?
Always good to get a podium for our private label team Hype Ethica IndyCar. I don't know, just traffic just didn't work out great for us. Kind of a bummer. I think we would have had something. It would have been a fun end of the race if he just didn't get all the breaks of the traffic. So we take the second and we move on. It's good points. It's better than getting junked in one of these things. So good points for us today.
Good points and a good run overall, but talk us through the battle with you and Adam Blocker, because you kept within range from him. You clawed your way into second position. Talk us through you and trying to keep up and battle with Blocker.
It's really. I felt like he was just trying to stay behind and fuel save. Trying to have a shorter stop, and we just lost the race in the last pit stop. I was a second slower on the lane, and I think he took a shorter stop with less fuel. So that just got us too far behind, and the lap traffic before that wasn't a big help either. So I don't know. It was just the package is just the front two swap, or you save fuel, and everybody else behind you just hold on for dear life and hope you don't plow down the fence. So, but. It was fun for a little while, and then it just kind of became just sort of riding around.
Indeed, and now good points day overall for yourself in this race, and now it's the matter of continuing the season, Connor. Where do you look to head from here, especially with you trying to carry momentum forward on the season, try and continue this on forward as you go next to the Milwaukee Mile?
I don't know. Flat track racing probably not my strong suit. At some point I think some other people are gonna start having some pretty bad luck for me to have a chance to win the championship. It's getting very late early, especially after last week. So we just got to keep plugging away at it. We had a pretty good team day for ourselves. So I think we gained a little bit in the points there too. So we can't be too upset, but it's just, we need some luck to go our way. So
congratulations on the run today, Connor.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Connor Harrington, second today, but now from HyperX Victory Lane, Adam Blocker put on a dominating performance for the HyperX Indianapolis 500 to be able to lead 144 laps, to be able to add himself to the record books as the second two-time winner, and now it's celebration time. Adam Blocker now joins us in the broadcast booth from HyperX Victory Lane. Adam, you've made history. How does it feel to become the second two-time winner and the second driver to win from the pole in the history of this event?
It feels pretty good. Just a big relief that no cautions or anything like that shaked it up in the last stints. I knew I would have a shot with how important track position was, and the first half of the race, basically, Sage unfortunately had his computer crash, so he wasn't able to grid, but it meant that he was basically up there with the leaders with how things kind of shaked out. So yeah, I just decided, to let him lead. There was no point in really fighting him, and I was going to use him to save fuel off of, and I was doing that, and it was working pretty good. And then, yeah, I mean, and once we got into the middle stages of the race, there was a point where we were going to have to hit a big fuel number. I think the caution with like 95 to go or something like that. So I let Connor lead, and I was going to save fuel off of him. I'm not sure if I could have hit the fuel number to make it to the end, especially with how hard it was to follow on old tires. Like, you need to follow close to get close following distance to make a good fuel number, and I wasn't quite doing that. So I was happy we got a caution with like 86 to go, and yeah, then it was just a duel between Connor and I.
Yes, indeed, it became that duel, but in the end, you persevered and nailed the strategy. How difficult was that to nail it lap after lap, because you were able to break away many cases from Connor Harrington, especially after the pit stop sequences?
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly not expecting to break away from him. I was just, focused on hitting my marks. I knew it was going to be pretty tough to break away, but in that second pit stop, I'm not sure if he was sideways in his box or just less aggressive on pit in or something, but I didn't like nail it, but I was kind of conservative, but because I made sure I didn't want to make a big mistake, but I was still pretty close to what I felt was a good, both getting in my box and getting in pit lane. So yeah, and then after that, it was just managing lap traffic. He almost had a chance with how he caught lap traffic. He almost got my toe, but yeah, I was just having to be really aggressive with lap traffic to make sure that I kept him behind. And yeah, thankfully the lap traffic was pretty cooperative.
Indeed, it was cooperative today. Have to ask you this, of course, with the tradition of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, what kind of milk will you be drinking with this victory tonight?
I need to go. Honestly, I don't really have any, so yeah, just find some whiskey or something else to drink. But yeah, it'll be good. Yeah, I just want to thank all the team for for the efforts. John Vogel, Henry, Andrew, Tony, Joe, and Brian, everybody. Most of us had a good race. Unfortunately, a couple of us had issues at the beginning, but yeah, 1-3-4 is a great result, and yeah, hopefully we can carry this momentum into future races.
Congratulations, Adam, on the victory today. A historical day in Lionheart competition. Adam Blocker, your race winner today by 2.666 seconds over Connor Harrington. What a performance by him today. What a drive by him overall. Lorenzo, I want to turn to you for a moment. Incredible, to say the least, the history that was made today.
Yeah, it was very, very incredible to see the dominance out of Adam Blocker, leading the majority of the laps in this race and giving no room whatsoever for error for the other drivers to come and contend. Connor did a really good job to try to get close with that, but again, Adam was just so good, not giving 1 inch to any other driver specifically, and being the second driver to win multiple times in this race, second driver to win from the pole position, second time he was the owner of the other back-to-back winner, so putting that another one to his record book. So amazing performance for him this week.
And an amazing performance as well from one of his fellow friends, Andrew Kinsella, who came away with 4th position today. I believe he's also now standing by after what was an intriguing race from the 41 machine. Andrew Kinsella is with Lorenzo Bonder.
So, Andrew, let me just talk. I want you to talk us through the drive that you had, man. You really had a really good start. Had to claw yourself back up a few spots because you were bumped out back because of the pit lanes, but I think all in all, P4, it's a result that you and your team are pretty much satisfied with.
Yeah, definitely overall satisfied. The plan for the first 100 laps or so was just to cruise, but then when we saw how the race was playing out, and Adam and Connor sort of got clear on that second stint of the race there, basically, I had saved a lot of fuel. The first stint went longer than everyone else, and then was able to use some of that fuel to get back into them. And it was looking like a 3-horse race almost for a little while there. Henry started to close back up on us as well. And then, yeah, just missed slightly on some restarts and pit cycles where didn't quite go the way we wanted. I think if Henry and I had been able to clear Tyler and Sam, and I think it was Ryan Otis on that last restart, I think we probably could have made it an interesting 4-horse race with Connor and Adam, because I think we were definitely just as fast as they were. And certainly once we cleared all the other guys, we were going basically the same speed as them. But yeah, overall, really happy. Had a nice little battle there with Henry. We caught some lap cars with about 10 to go, and just didn't have any tires left on it to get back to him. But congrats to Henry, and obviously congrats to Adam. Really happy for the team for that one.
Right on. And talk us through about your battle with the Henry Bennett. Did you guys decided to battle for the podium spot, or you guys were trying to work yourself out to try to get closer to Connor Harrington in the final laps?
We knew that there was no way that we could get close enough to really do anything. We didn't even, I don't think we even considered really working together. He was going for it, and so was I. It was everything I could just to close in on him. And I think I got it to within a couple of tenths at one point, but that was it. Yeah, as I said, the lap cars and the traffic just didn't quite go our way and Henry's way, but at the same time, yeah, we're definitely very satisfied. We were up front all day, and it was definitely a good race for both of us.
Yeah, definitely. And again, on the point and team, talking about team standings, you guys really had a really good performance so far, dominant performance to say the least. And where do you guys see yourselves moving forward? Because there's still more than a little bit more than a half of the championship left. And where do you guys think the Adrenaline Motorsports Red Audi is pretty much comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean, our goal at the start of the year was P1 in the team championship, and it remains our goal. I don't think there's any secret about that. I think Brian, Henry, and I, we all have the talent to take it to Connor, Josh, and Jason, and I think it's going to be a battle right to the end between our two teams. I think that each team has some strengths and some weaknesses on different tracks and different track types, and I think that especially after this race where the team hype guys had a little bit of more misfortune than we did, even though Connor did finish in front of both Henry and I think that it's probably going to result in us being reset almost at least close to even terms. So I think for us, anything short of a P1 in the championship is going to be a disappointment.
All right, fair point. And Andrew, before we let you go, anybody want to give any shout outs from the Adrenaline Motorsports outing, or anybody watching?
Yeah, just thanks to everyone at Adrenaline. We always work so well together as a team, and it's a pleasure racing with these guys week in, week out in Lionheart. Can't say enough about my teammates, and thanks to Hyperx, Buttkicker, and all of our sponsors, and especially thanks to you guys for putting on week after week. You guys put on an amazing broadcasts, and I can't wait to watch this one back as well. So big shout out to you guys.
All right, and again, Andrew, thank you so much. Congratulations on P4, and can't wait to see what you do in the next one.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
All right, back to you, Justin.
That's Andrew Kinsella. Once again, coming away with a 4th place finish in this one. As real quickly, get the opportunity to chat with the 5th place finisher as well. Extended HyperX post-race show coverage here. Tyler Graff, have to ask you this. The emotions of a top 5 run. A lot of fans watching along. We're looking to cheer you on in this one, and we're hoping to see you have this top 5. How does it feel to come away with the top 5 here in the HyperX Indianapolis 500?
Man, I'm absolutely elated right now. The way this season's gone, if I like Marsha Pruitt calls it the cartoon anvil, I've definitely had it. If this season would go the way, if I would finish where I should have effectively been in all the races this season, I'd be like probably mid top 10. But I'm so happy. I've worked so hard this last couple weeks. I worked so hard on getting a decent qualifying spot. It's just awesome. It's definitely a little bit of a pick me up confidence booster that I needed this season.
Absolutely. You had strong performances in the Retro Series this week. You had a strong performance now here in the IndyCar Series. Congratulations, Tyler, on the performance tonight.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Checking in with Topper Graf, coming away with the 5th place run. Lorenzo, your final thoughts on this one as our first Triple Crown is now in the books.
Our first Triple Crown is now in the books, and we still have 2 more to go, which is Michigan and then Pocono. But it's going to be a very interesting race. Nevertheless, I can't wait to see what the drivers will do. But for now, Adam Blocker, what a weekend. And I can't wait to see what the other drivers will... not Pocono, it's actually Auto Club, as you guys see the schedule over here. It was like correction, but nevertheless... It's going to be a very interesting schedule, second half of the season, because the next track we go into, the Milwaukee Mile, marks the first half of the season.
It's going to be absolutely entertaining, to say the very least, to see how the next few weeks fare out, especially the month of July, all the way through to August with Milwaukee, Silverstone, Texas, Phillip Island, a wild stretch of races coming up. But on that note, we'd like to thank the many sponsors who are a part of the Lionheart Racing Series and its competitions. For sim racers, the buttkicker Gamer 2 simulation kit adds a missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by Hyperx, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whenever you play, however you play, Hyperx knows we're all gamers. For more information on Hyperx products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLCRacingChannel.com. And it's not just those 5 names, but many more, and all the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series who are a part of all this work. To learn more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart Racing Series sanctioning body runs. Lots more of Lionheart action to come, including tomorrow night when the Speedway Series heads over to Kentucky Speedway. Be sure to tune in on RaceSpottv and ESTV to follow along with the action. Be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series. ESTV also has your esports needs, while RaceSpottv has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and more. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. For Esteban Balu, for Hugo Ruiz, for Lorenzo Bonder, I'm Justin Prince, saying so long, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for watching RaceSpottv and ESTV's coverage of the Hyperx Indianapolis 500, where Adam Blocker becomes a 2-time winner of this 500-mile extravaganza.